I stood outside my childhood home on Christmas Eve, deliberately wearing a thrift store coat with a missing button. Through the frosted windows, I watched my family celebrate my sister Kate, the newly appointed CFO, the golden child, the one who had everything I supposedly didn't. They had no idea that tomorrow, when Kate walked into her career-defining meeting with the mysterious founder of Apex Vault Technologies, she'd be walking into a room where I'd be waiting. Not as Alexandra Morrison, the family disappointment who worked at a bookstore, but as the woman who built the $1.5 billion empire they'd been worshiping for years. Tomorrow, they'd finally see me, and nothing would ever be the same again. But to understand tomorrow's reckoning, you need to know how we got here. And it starts 24 hours earlier with the cruelest invitation I'd ever received. The December wind bit through my coat, a coat I'd chosen specifically because it looked like I couldn't afford better. Frayed cuffs, missing button, worn collar. I'd left my Burberry cashmere in the closet of my downtown apartment and driven here in the 10-year-old Honda I kept for occasions like this. The one that fit the narrative my family had written for me. Through the living room window, warm yellow light spilled across familiar silhouettes. My mother, Patricia, moved with practiced elegance, directing traffic with manicured hands. My father, Robert, held court from his leather armchair, tablet glowing. And there, beneath the crystal chandelier my parents had imported from Austria, hung a massive banner in emerald and gold. Congratulations, Kate, CFO of Riverton Financial. I pulled my phone from my pocket. The screen showed two different realities. My personal messages, texts from my mother about making sure to arrive on time and trying to look presentable. But when I swiped to my encrypted apps, a different world appeared. Market reports, board meeting minutes, a message from Jessica Walsh, my COO. Security briefed for tomorrow's meeting. Are you absolutely sure about this? I typed back with cold fingers. I've been sure for 8 years. 8 years of building Apex Vault Technologies in secret. 8 years of watching my family admire the company I'd created while treating me like a cautionary tale. 8 years of testing whether they could love Alexandra Morrison, the person, without knowing about Alexandra Hayes Morrison, the founder. They'd failed that test more thoroughly than I'd imagined possible. I pocketed my phone and started up the walk. Snow crunched under my deliberately worn boots that had cost me $12 at a consignment shop despite the fact that I owned a closet full of Louboutins I'd never worn in front of my family. Each step felt like slipping into costume. Each breath was preparation for a performance. Tonight, I would let them see exactly who they thought I was. Tomorrow, I'd show them who I'd been all along. The door opened before I reached it. My mother stood in the frame, backlit like something from a magazine spread. She wore an emerald satin dress that probably cost more than 3 months' rent on the kind of apartment she assumed I could afford. Her hair was perfectly curled, makeup flawless, pearls catching the light. Her eyes swept over me the way a property appraiser evaluates damage. "Well," she said, her smile polite and brittle as ice. "You made it." Not hello, not "we're glad you're here." Just acknowledgement of my arrival, the way you'd note that a package had been delivered. She stepped aside, her nose wrinkling slightly, so slightly that anyone else might have missed it as I passed. "Everyone's in the living room. Try not to track snow in, dear." CL. The house smelled exactly as it always did on Christmas Eve. Cinnamon, cranberry cider, expensive wine, and the particular scent of fresh-cut pine from the 12-foot tree my father had shipped from Vermont. It should have felt like coming home. Instead, it felt like trespassing in a museum of memories that no longer belonged to me. "Is that Lexi?" My father's voice carried from the living room, distracted, not quite interested enough to warrant standing up. I entered to find the Morrison family tableau arranged like a painting. Robert Morrison in his favorite chair, tablet propped on his knee, reading glasses perched on his nose. Around him, arranged on various pieces of expensive furniture, sat aunts, uncles, cousins, the extended family that appeared for major holidays and left with doggy bags of my mother's cooking. Robert glanced up just long enough to confirm my identity. "We thought you might get stuck working late at—" He paused, searching for the detail. "Wherever you're working now." "The bookstore," my mother supplied quickly, her voice carrying just enough volume to ensure the whole room heard. She's still at the bookstore. A woman I vaguely recognized, Aunt Martha, my mother's sister, murmured to her husband. Retail during the holidays, my goodness. I forced a small smile, the kind I'd practiced in the mirror until it looked natural. The bookstore closes early on Christmas Eve. How thoughtful of them, Martha said with the particular brand of pity reserved for the underemployed. I stood near the archway, not quite entering the room, not quite leaving. Observing. This was what I'd come for. Not reconciliation, not family warmth, but data. I needed to see exactly how far they'd go, how deeply they'd cut, how thoroughly they misunderstood me. Because tomorrow, when they walked into that conference room expecting to impress a stranger, they'd need to remember this moment. They'd need to remember exactly how they'd treated the woman who held their future in her hands. The energy in the room shifted so dramatically I could almost feel the air pressure change. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Heads turned toward the hallway. Even my father set down his tablet. Kate Morrison made an entrance the way other people breathed, effortlessly, perfectly, as if the world had simply been waiting for her to arrive. She wore an ivory blazer that had definitely been custom-tailored, fitted to her frame with the precision of architecture. Her dark hair fell in glossy waves that looked casual but probably required an hour with a professional stylist. Diamond studs caught the chandelier light. Her makeup was subtle and flawless, the kind that cost hundreds of dollars to look like she wasn't wearing any. "Sorry I'm late, everyone," she said with a warm smile that could have melted the snow outside. "I had a call with one of our board members." The room erupted in a murmur of admiration. A board member! Before Christmas Eve dinner! Such dedication. "That's our Kate." She moved through the space like a politician working a room, stopping to hug my mother, who positively glowed, to kiss my father's cheek. He actually stood up for this. To greet relatives who clustered around her like moths to a light source. When she finally turned to me, her smile softened into something I recognized, the particular expression of someone acknowledging a stray dog. "Oh, Lexi," she said, as if mildly surprised to discover I existed. "You're here. I wasn't sure you'd come to events like this anymore." I clutched my battered purse, a $6 find from the Goodwill, chosen specifically because it had a broken zipper. "I didn't want to miss celebrating you." She laughed, a light musical sound. "Well, thank you." Then, tapping her manicured nails against her champagne flute, she added with the particular cadence of someone delivering a speech she'd rehearsed. "It's amazing what setting real goals can do, isn't it? Hard work really does pay off." The words landed exactly as she'd intended, a reminder to everyone in the room that she had worked hard, set real goals, while implying that I had done neither. "Congratulations on the CFO position," I said quietly. "You've worked incredibly hard." "I have." She accepted the compliment as her due, then turned to the room at large. "And this is just the beginning. Tomorrow afternoon, I have a meeting that could change everything." The room leaned in, hungry for her next words. My phone buzzed silently in my pocket. I didn't need to check it to know what it said. Jessica reminding me that tomorrow's meeting was set for 2 p.m. sharp, that security had been briefed, that the conference room had been prepared, that the founder, me, would be waiting. I was attempting to become invisible near the coat closet when I heard the distinctive tap of a silver-handled cane on hardwood floors. Eleanor Morrison, my grandmother, made her way across the room with the careful dignity of someone who'd lived 83 years and had no intention of rushing through the remaining ones. Her face carried the same disappointment it had worn for as long as I could remember, etched into lines that deepened when she looked at me. "Child," she said, touching my arm with a papery hand, "what happened to that bright girl you once were? You had such potential, Alexandra. It breaks my heart." I'd heard variations of this speech since I was 16. "Life takes unexpected turns, Grandma." "Not everyone is meant to shine, I suppose." She patted my arm with a finality that made it sound like an epitaph for my wasted life. But then something strange happened. As she turned to walk away, her hand squeezed mine. Just once. Quickly. It was so brief I might have imagined it, except for what she whispered, so quietly that only I could hear. "Not everyone sees what I see, child. Be patient." I watched her shuffle toward Kate, who was showing off her diamond earrings to a cluster of admiring relatives. Eleanor joined them, oohing and awing appropriately, playing her part in the family performance. But that squeeze, that whisper, I filed it away with all the other data I was collecting tonight. Eleanor Morrison had been a businesswoman before she married my grandfather. She'd run a successful textile company in the 1960s before selling it to raise her children. She understood things the rest of this family had forgotten. Did she suspect something? I made a mental note to be more careful around her. Dinner preparation created a symphony of controlled chaos. My mother directed traffic from the kitchen, her voice carrying instructions about serving temperatures and presentation. The dining room table had been extended to accommodate 16 people, covered in the cream linen tablecloth that only appeared on major holidays. Crystal goblets, china that had belonged to my great-grandmother, silver that required polishing, fresh flowers arranged in 3 separate centerpieces. My mother believed in the power of presentation, the idea that the right staging could make anything, even a dysfunctional family, look perfect. I positioned myself at the far end of the table, the seat typically reserved for children or guests who didn't quite belong. From here, I had a perfect vantage point. I could observe without being observed, listen without being expected to contribute. Kate held court at the other end, in what had once been my grandfather's chair. She described her leadership strategy at Riverton Financial with the polished delivery of someone who'd given this presentation multiple times. Expansion projections, restructuring plans, market positioning. Every sentence was a performance, every gesture calculated. The family absorbed it all with the enthusiasm of devoted followers. "And the salary?" Uncle James asked, leaning forward. "If you don't mind sharing." Kate smiled modestly. "600,000 base, plus performance bonuses and stock options." Gasps, applause. Someone actually whooped. My mother beamed from the kitchen doorway. "I always knew one of my daughters would achieve greatness." No need to clarify which one. Derek Ashford, Kate's husband, appeared in the dining room carrying a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my monthly rent in the apartment they imagined I lived in. He wore his success like expensive cologne. Too much, applied too liberally. "We're house hunting," he announced to anyone who would listen. "Nothing under 4,000 square feet. Executive district, naturally. You wouldn't believe the properties we've been touring." "I'm sure they're beautiful," I said when his monologue seemed to require a response. He nodded, already scanning the room for someone more impressive to talk to. His eyes slid over me the way you'd look past street furniture, acknowledging its presence without really seeing it. Conversation flowed around me, a river that I observed from the bank. They discussed quarterly earnings, vacation homes in Aspen, investment portfolios, country club memberships, the currency of their world, the proof of their worth. No one asked about my bookstore. No one inquired about my life. I was simply there, a necessary presence to make the family complete, but not important enough to engage. My mother approached with a neighbor I didn't recognize. "This is Evelyn's daughter, Lexi," Patricia said, her tone apologetic as if explaining a regrettable situation. "She works at that little bookstore downtown. It's quite quaint." "Books are lovely," the woman replied with a smile that dripped pity. "Such a peaceful occupation." "Very peaceful," I agreed. What they didn't know, that little bookstore was Morrigan's Books, which I'd purchased 5 years ago as a community investment. The building it occupied had been renovated to include state-of-the-art executive offices accessible through a biometric security system hidden behind a false wall. The bookstore was profitable, yes, but it was also a front, the perfect disguise for a woman who didn't want to be found. Kate tapped her champagne flute with a silver fork, the crystalline ring cutting through conversation. The room fell silent with the trained responsiveness of people who knew when to pay attention. She stood, positioning herself beside the chandelier where the light would catch her best features. This wasn't an accident. Kate understood staging as well as our mother did. "Everyone," she began, pausing to let anticipation build. "I have an announcement." The room held its breath. "Tomorrow afternoon, I have a meeting with representatives from Apex Vault Technologies." The explosion of excitement was immediate. Gasps, applause, champagne sloshing as people jumped up to hug her. My mother's hand flew to her chest. My father stood, pride radiating from him like heat. "Apex Vault?" Aunt Martha breathed. "The tech company? The one that's been in all the news?" "The very one," Kate confirmed, clearly savoring this moment. "They requested me specifically." More gasps. "If this partnership moves forward, it could double Riverton's revenue by next year. This is—" She paused for effect. "This is a major step for our family." "For our family," my mother echoed, glancing at me for just a fraction of a second. The look said everything. This is what success looks like. This is what you could never achieve. This is why Kate matters and you don't. I kept my expression carefully neutral, though something hot and electric flickered in my chest. Not anger, not pain. Something closer to anticipation, because they had no idea. Apex Vault Technologies, the company they'd been following in the news for years. The mysterious tech giant that had revolutionized enterprise software solutions. The billion-dollar empire run by an anonymous founder who shunned publicity. They admired it. They studied it. They dreamed of partnering with it. And tomorrow, when Kate walked into that conference room expecting to impress a stranger, she'd discover that the founder she'd been preparing to meet was the sister she'd spent 32 years underestimating. I raised my water glass slightly, a private toast to tomorrow. I excused myself during the main course, murmuring something about needing air. The truth was, I needed a moment away from the performance. Even the strongest actor needs to drop the mask occasionally. I made my way toward the kitchen, intending to slip out the back door to the porch, but voices from the adjacent pantry stopped me. My parents, speaking in the urgent, hushed tones of people who think they're being private. "Are you certain about tonight?" my father was asking. "It seems excessive." "We can't coddle her forever, Robert." My mother's voice carried the sharp edge of someone who'd made a decision and wouldn't be swayed. "The intervention is for her own good. If she sees how far behind she is, maybe she'll finally make changes." Intervention. I stood very still, processing. "And Kate wrote talking points?" my father asked. "Of course. She knows exactly what needs to be said. We'll do it after dessert, the whole family. Show Lexi that we're unified in our concern for her future." "The job applications are in the bag?" "Along with the budget workbook, the resume templates, everything she needs to get her life on track." I stepped back from the pantry as silently as a shadow, my heart beating slow and steady. Not fast, not panicked, just steady. An intervention. They'd invited me to Christmas Eve dinner to stage an intervention. Not to celebrate the holidays, not to enjoy family time, but to fix me. To correct the problem of my existence, to reshape me into someone they could be proud of. I returned to the dining room and reclaimed my seat. Dessert arrived, an elaborate tower of profiteroles that my mother had probably spent hours perfecting. Kate launched into another detailed explanation of market forecasts and industry trends. Everyone listened with rapt attention, nodding at appropriate moments, raising their glasses in spontaneous toasts. And I sat at the far end of the table, invisible to everyone except myself, and understood something with perfect clarity. This wasn't the end of something. It wasn't even a betrayal, because that would imply I'd expected better. This was simply confirmation. Confirmation that I'd been right to hide, right to build my empire in secret, right to test whether they could love me without needing me to be useful. They'd failed the test so completely it was almost beautiful. Just when I thought the evening couldn't become more performative, Kate stood again. "Before we finish dessert," she said, her hand moving to her stomach in a gesture so rehearsed it could have been choreographed, "Derek and I have one more announcement." The room went silent again, expectant. Kate's smile widened. "We're expecting!" The explosion of joy was deafening. Chairs scraped back as people rushed to congratulate her. My mother burst into tears, the happy kind, the kind she'd never cried for me. My father grabbed Derek's hand in a firm shake, the kind of masculine approval he rationed like gold. My first grandchild! Patricia pressed her hands to her face, mascara threatening to run. The first Morrison baby of the next generation! This child will inherit everything. The phrases tumbled over each other, building a narrative. This baby would carry on the family legacy. This baby would be raised properly. This baby would succeed where others, meaning me, had failed. Then, inevitably, the attention turned. Aunt Martha placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Lexi, dear, maybe you could help with childcare. It would give you purpose. Yes! My mother seized on this idea with visible relief, as if she'd finally found a use for me. You could move back home, help Kate once the baby arrives. You've always been so available. The word hung in the air. Available. Translation: you have nothing better to do. I watched Kate's face carefully. Was there guilt there? Discomfort? But no, she smiled, accepting this as her due. Her sister, relegated to supporting role. Her family's disappointment, finally given a purpose that matched her limited abilities. That's very thoughtful, I said carefully. To think of how I could contribute. It's perfect, my mother agreed, already planning. You'll give notice at the bookstore right after Christmas. We'll set up the guest room for you. Kate will need all the support she can get, balancing a new baby with her career. They discussed my future around me, their voices floating above my head like I was furniture being rearranged. She'll do this. She should try that. She needs structure. She requires guidance. Never once did anyone ask what I wanted. I pulled out my phone under the table and typed a quick message to Jessica. Confirm tomorrow's schedule, 2 p.m. sharp. Family will be in attendance. Her response came immediately. Conference room A prepared, security briefed. Documents ready. Alex, are you sure? I looked around at the table, at my mother, planning my life without consulting me. At my father, barely acknowledging my existence. At Kate, glowing in her pregnancy announcement while accepting my subjugation as natural. At the extended family, comfortable with my designated role as the one who serves, who supports, who fades into the background. I typed back, I've never been more sure of anything. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., they would walk into a building they'd never seen, through a door they didn't know existed, into a room where the power dynamics would shift so completely they'd need weeks to process it. Tomorrow, the invisible daughter would become undeniable. But tonight, I would let them believe exactly what they wanted to believe. I smiled softly and said, I'm happy to help however I can. And I was. Just not in the way they imagined. Christmas morning arrived with the kind of crisp, bright sunlight that made the snow outside look like it had been dusted with diamonds. I'd barely slept, my mind cycling through tomorrow's meeting, playing out scenarios, preparing for reactions. But I'd learned long ago how to function on minimal sleep. CEOs didn't have the luxury of exhaustion. I arrived at my parents' house at 9, as requested. The smell of cinnamon rolls and fresh coffee greeted me. Through the dining room archway, I could see the table already set for breakfast. Another formal affair because Patricia Morrison didn't do casual. The conversation when I entered was already in full swing, and it had nothing to do with Christmas. The returns on that mutual fund have been exceptional, Uncle James was saying, gesturing with his coffee cup. 12% annually. We're restructuring our portfolio, Aunt Martha added. Our financial advisor suggests moving more into tech stocks. Speaking of tech, my father said, looking up from his iPad, have you all been following Apex Vault's trajectory? They're projecting 20% growth in the next quarter alone. My hand tightened slightly on my coffee cup. That's the company Kate's meeting with tomorrow, Patricia said proudly, as if she'd personally arranged the partnership. I took a seat at the far end of the table, my designated spot, apparently permanent, and listened to them discuss my company. They analyzed our market strategy, debated our competitive advantages, speculated about our founder's identity. I read that the founder is extremely private, my cousin Daniel said. No one knows who they are, not even most of the employees. That's because I use shell companies and trust structures, I thought, but didn't say. Because I learned at 16 that this family would take anything I built and claim it as their own. Kate arrived late, of course, making another entrance. She wore a soft cream sweater dress that probably cost what most people earned in a month. Her hair was already styled to perfection despite the early hour. "Sorry, everyone," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "I had a call with one of our board members." The murmur of admiration rippled through the room again. "On Christmas morning? Such dedication! That's leadership!" She settled into the chair beside my mother, who immediately began serving her the best pieces of everything. The dynamic was so automatic, so ingrained, that I doubt either of them even noticed they were doing it. "I'm finalizing my presentation for tomorrow," Kate announced. "Apex Vault values innovation and integrity. I need to demonstrate that Riverton embodies both." I took a sip of coffee to hide my expression. Innovation and integrity. If only she knew what Apex Vault's background check had already uncovered about her company, about her husband. Derek appeared in the dining room doorway, phone pressed to his ear, his face flushed and damp despite the cool morning air. "No, I told you," he hissed into the phone. "The review can't happen now. We need more time." He noticed everyone watching and attempted a smile that looked more like a grimace. "Just work," he said. "Year-end accounting headaches." But he didn't look like someone dealing with routine paperwork. He looked like someone drowning. I'd seen that expression before in boardrooms, when executives realized their creative accounting was about to be exposed, when the walls were closing in and there was nowhere left to hide. Under the table, I pulled out my phone and texted Jessica. "Status on Derek Ashford background check." Her response came within seconds. "Preliminary report shows multiple red flags. Full audit completing tonight. You'll have everything before tomorrow's meeting." I pocketed my phone as Derek took another call, this one taking him outside onto the porch. Through the window, I watched him pace, gesturing frantically, his breath fogging in the cold air. Kate noticed, too. A small line appeared between her eyebrows, the only crack in her perfect facade. "Is Derek all right?" Eleanor asked, materializing beside me with her cane. "I'm sure it's just work stress," I said. Eleanor looked at me with those sharp eyes that saw too much. "Is it?" Before I could answer, Derek came back inside, forcing brightness into his voice. "All sorted, nothing that can't be handled." But his hands were shaking when he reached for his coffee. After breakfast, I excused myself to the bathroom, but instead of going upstairs, I slipped down the hallway toward my father's study. The door was slightly ajar, and I could hear voices inside. "Everyone knows their talking points?" my mother was asking. "I have them here," my father replied. The sound of paper shuffling. "We start with expressions of love and concern, then move into specific deficits we've observed." "And the gift bag?" "Right here. Job applications, budget workbook, resume templates. Martha is bringing the financial literacy pamphlet." "Perfect." Patricia's voice softened. "I know this seems harsh, Robert, but we're doing this because we love her. She needs structure. She needs goals. She needs to stop drifting." I leaned against the wall, listening to them plan my intervention with the same methodical approach my father used for business presentations. They'd made an agenda, assigned roles, prepared materials. They were staging an emotional ambush, and they'd convinced themselves it was love. The study door opened wider, and I slipped into the nearby bathroom just in time. In the mirror, I studied my face, the face they thought they knew, the daughter who couldn't get her life together, the sister who'd never measure up. Tomorrow, this face would be the last thing Kate expected to see when she walked into Apex Vault's conference room. I smiled at my reflection. I needed air. Real air, not the suffocating atmosphere of the Morrison house with its carefully maintained facade. I stepped out onto the back porch, closing the door softly behind me. The snow had stopped falling, leaving everything covered in pristine white. The world looked clean, simple, honest. My phone buzzed. Jessica. "Tell me you're not having second thoughts," she said without preamble. No second thoughts. Alex, this is going to detonate your life. The board is nervous. The PR team is terrified. The lawyers have prepared 17 different contingency plans. I watched my breath fog in the cold air. And what do you think? A long pause. Jessica had been with me since the beginning, when Apex Vault was just an idea and a website. She'd believed in me when I had nothing but vision and determination. She'd agreed to be the public face of the company while I built it in secret. I think, she said carefully, that you're the bravest person I know, and I think your family has no idea what's about to hit them. The audit on Derek? Completed an hour ago. Alex, it's bad. 18 months of falsified reports. Embezzlement. He's been covering gambling debts and bad investments by manipulating Riverton's books. Kate appears to be completely in the dark. My stomach twisted. You're certain she's not involved? Her divisions are clean, pristine, actually. She's good at her job. She just married a criminal. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow was going to destroy Kate, her husband, her career, her sense of reality. All of it would come crashing down. Part of me, the part that remembered being 8 years old and having Kate read me bedtime stories, wanted to warn her, wanted to pull her aside and tell her to run. But the larger part, the part that had spent decades being diminished and dismissed, knew that some lessons could only be learned through consequences. Send me everything, I said. I want the full report before tomorrow's meeting. Already in your secure inbox. I heard voices from inside, my mother calling everyone to the living room. It was time. Jess, they're about to stage an intervention. They're going to tell me everything that's wrong with my life and offer me a job as Kate's assistant. Jessica laughed, but it had a sharp edge. Are you going to accept? With tears in my eyes and gratitude in my voice. You're terrifying. You know that, right? Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, they'll know it too. I ended the call and stood on the porch for one more minute, gathering my composure. The next hour would require my best performance yet, the perfect blend of humility, gratitude, and broken spirit. They needed to believe they'd won, so that tomorrow, when they lost, it would be absolute. The living room had been rearranged. Instead of the casual holiday gathering, chairs now formed a perfect circle, the kind of setup you'd see in a support group or therapy session. My family sat around the circle, their expressions arranged into masks of concern. My mother had even brought tissues, setting them prominently on the coffee table like props in a play about caring. Lexi, sweetheart, Patricia said, patting the empty chair in the center of the circle. Come sit down. We want to talk to you. I sat, clutching my worn purse, the picture of someone who knew they were about to be judged. My mother took a deep breath, the kind that precedes difficult speeches. We love you very much. You know that, don't you? The preface, the sugarcoating, the lie that made what came next feel justified. And because we love you, she continued, we need to address some concerns. Aunt Martha leaned forward, her voice dripping with gentle condescension. Honey, you're such a sweet girl. But do you think you're truly happy? Working retail at your age, living in that tiny apartment? She needs stability, someone offered. She needs direction, another voice added. She needs to start thinking like a grown woman. The chorus built around me, each voice adding to a symphony of judgment disguised as care. My father pulled up his iPad, his face grave. Alexandra, you're 32 years old. Let's be frank about your situation. No significant assets, no retirement savings, no career trajectory, no relationships of substance. He might as well have been reading my obituary. This family, he continued, believes in achievement, in ambition, in progress. His eyes shifted to Kate, who sat with her hands folded, the very picture of someone who embodied all these values. We set high standards because we care about each other's success. Translation: we set high standards so we can measure who matters and who doesn't. My mother lifted a large gift bag from beside the sofa. It was festive, red and green with golden ribbon, as if humiliation came better wrapped in holiday colors. So, she said brightly, we put something together for you, tools to help you get back on track. She placed the bag in my lap. It was heavy. Go ahead, dear. Take a look. I reached inside and pulled out the first item, a budget planning workbook titled, Take Control of Your Life in 30 Days. The cover featured a woman in a business suit, climbing steps made of dollar bills. The irony almost made me laugh. I controlled a $1.5 billion company. I didn't need help managing my budget, but I widened my eyes as if grateful. Thank you! Next came discount store gift cards, Target, Walmart, the kind of places they assumed I shopped. Then, a box of resume paper. Professional quality, the box proclaimed. Then, a stack of job applications. I flipped through them. Receptionist positions, entry-level administrative roles, server positions at local cafes. Each one was a message. This is your level. This is what you're worth. But the worst came last. As I dug deeper, I saw a yellow envelope marked Estate Review in my father's handwriting. It was partially visible, tucked beneath the other items. My mother noticed me looking at it and quickly snatched it away. Oh, not that one yet. She forced a laugh. We'll save that for later. That's about family planning, future considerations. But I'd seen enough. Estate review, inheritance documentation, something about my grandfather's will. They were hiding something from me, something financial. I filed that information away and continued examining the bag's contents. A pamphlet on financial literacy for beginners, a list of community college courses, a meditation app subscription to help with stress and low self-esteem. We wanted to give you everything you need to make real changes, my mother said. Everything except belief, except respect, except love without conditions. Kate rose from her chair with the fluid grace of someone about to deliver a keynote speech. She positioned herself beside the fireplace, where the light caught her best features. Lexi, she began, her voice warm but calculated, I've been thinking a lot about your situation. My situation. As if I were a problem to be solved. My new role as CFO comes with significant authority, including hiring decisions. She paused, letting this sink in. I want to offer you something meaningful, an opportunity. The room leaned forward, anticipating her generosity. I'm authorized to hire an executive assistant. It's an entry-level position. The salary would be modest, around $30,000, but it would give you structure, routine, purpose. Her smile was beatific. You'd learn how a real company functions, how business actually works at a professional level. The room hummed with approval. That's so generous, Aunt Martha breathed. Helping family, Uncle James nodded. That's what it's all about. You have such a good heart, Kate, my mother said, dabbing at her eyes. Derek stepped forward, crossing his arms in a posture that was meant to look supportive but read as superior. And I can get you invitations to some networking mixers, junior-level events. You'd need to improve your wardrobe, of course. His eyes lingered on me in a way that made my skin crawl. But people are always willing to help those who show effort. The implication hung in the air. Help came with expectations, with strings, with prices that weren't discussed in front of the family. Kate continued, So here's the plan. I start my new role on January 2nd. You'll give your notice at the bookstore right after New Year's. You can move back home. She gestured around the house. Help with the baby when it arrives, and we'll set both short-term and long-term goals for you. I'm creating an action plan right now, my father said, tapping on his iPad. Measurable steps, accountability metrics. We can have weekly check-ins to ensure you're making progress. And no more isolation, Aunt Martha added firmly. It's not healthy for a woman your age to be so alone. My mother nodded vigorously. Exactly. You've had far too much freedom, Lexi. It hasn't done you any good. Freedom. They said it like it was a disease. I let the silence stretch for a moment. Let them think I was processing. Overwhelmed. Grateful. Then I pushed tears into my eyes. Not difficult when I thought about what they were actually offering me. The scraps from their table. The role of supporting actress in their family drama. Thank you, I whispered, voice breaking slightly. I don't know what to say. Say yes, my father urged. Kate is giving you a real opportunity. Don't waste it. Yes, my mother echoed, leaning forward. Think of how much this could change your life. I looked around the circle at their expectant faces, at the people who'd raised me, who'd fed me, who'd given me a home and education and opportunities, and who'd never, not once, asked me what I wanted, who'd never wondered if my quietness was strength rather than weakness, who'd never considered that my simplicity might be choice rather than failure. Can I ask one question? I said softly. My mother smiled indulgently. Of course, dear. Has anyone considered what I might want? The room went quiet, confused. My mother blinked. What you want and what you need are two very different things, Lexi. Sometimes, my father added, his tone patronizing, families have to make difficult decisions for the greater good. The greater good, I repeated slowly. Aunt Martha nodded. Successful people surround themselves with successful people. You've been living too small, thinking too small. This is your chance to grow. Kate's voice was gentle, which somehow made it worse. You've been isolated, Lexi. Your world is tiny compared to what it could be. This is an opportunity to transform yourself. To become someone, my grandmother said quietly. Before it's too late. The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples of pain through me. But beneath the pain was something harder, colder, more controlled. Certainty. I pulled myself together and nodded. You're right. I've been drifting, lost. I do need help. The relief in the room was palpable. Good girl, my mother said, squeezing my hand. This is a brave choice, my father added. Kate smiled, satisfied. We'll make this work, Lexi. I promise. 1 year from now, you'll be thanking us. I smiled back, soft and grateful and broken. Inside, I was counting down the hours. 16 hours until tomorrow's meeting. 16 hours until they walked into Apex Vault's headquarters. 16 hours until they discovered that the woman they'd just tried to save was the one holding all their futures in her hands. I trust you, I said to Kate. I trust all of you. And as I said it, I thought, tomorrow, you'll learn what happens when you underestimate someone for 32 years. Tomorrow, the invisible daughter disappears, and the founder of Apex Vault takes her place. I woke at 5 a.m. in my real apartment, the one my family had never seen and never would. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Boston's skyline, the city still dark except for scattered lights like stars that had fallen to earth. My bedroom was minimalist, a platform bed with Italian linens, a single piece of abstract art, a chair where I draped my running clothes. Everything in shades of gray and white, clean, uncluttered, honest. This was the life I'd built when no one was watching. I made coffee in my restaurant-grade espresso machine, a graduation gift to myself when Apex Vault hit its first billion in valuation. Carried the cup to my home office, where 3 monitors displayed real-time data from markets around the world. My secure phone showed 47 messages accumulated overnight. Board members, department heads, Jessica, of course. The company ran efficiently without my constant oversight. I'd built it that way deliberately, but today was different. Today, everything changed. I opened my laptop and pulled up the files Jessica had sent at midnight, the full background check on Derek Ashford. What I saw made my coffee taste bitter. The document was comprehensive, clinical, devastating. Derek had been falsifying financial reports for 18 months. He'd created shell accounts, manipulated expense reports, and forged approval signatures. The amount missing, $3.2 million, but it wasn't simple embezzlement. It was desperation disguised as accounting. I scrolled through transaction histories. Derek had gambling debts with 3 separate casinos. He'd made high-risk investments in cryptocurrency that had crashed spectacularly. He'd borrowed from loan sharks, actual dangerous people who didn't accept excuses. He'd been using Riverton Financial as his personal ATM, covering his tracks with increasingly sloppy forgery. Kate's divisions, the ones she directly managed, were pristine. Her work was excellent, actually. Strategic, innovative, profitable. She'd earned her CFO position through genuine merit. She just had no idea she'd married a criminal. My phone buzzed. Jessica, video calling despite the early hour. "You've read it," she said when I answered. It wasn't a question. "I have." "Alex, this complicates everything. If we expose Derek, Kate's career could be collateral damage." I stared at the evidence on my screen. Bank transfers, forged documents, email chains where Derek instructed junior accountants to adjust the numbers and make it work. "Kate deserves to know the truth," I said quietly. "Even if it destroys her?" I thought about last night. Kate offering me a $30,000 assistant position while her husband stole millions. Kate accepting my subjugation as natural while building her success on a foundation of lies. "Especially then," I said. "She can't build a real future on a false foundation." Jessica's face on the screen looked tired. She'd probably been up all night finalizing preparations. "The board is nervous," she said. "They're worried about the publicity, about how this plays with investors." "And what did you tell them?" "That you built this company on integrity and transparency, that hiding your identity was about personal safety and family dynamics, not deception. That going public now is consistent with our values." I smiled slightly. "Good answer." "Alex," Jessica's voice softened. "Are you sure about this? Once you step into that conference room as yourself, there's no going back. Your family will know. The media will know. Your entire life becomes public." I'd thought about this for 8 years. Every decision, every structure, every protective layer I'd built had been leading to this moment. "I'm tired of hiding, Jess. I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of letting people who don't know me define who I am." "Your family is going to lose their minds." "Probably." "Kate's world is going to implode." "Yes." "And you're okay with that?" I looked out at the Boston skyline, the sun beginning to rise, painting everything in shades of pink and gold. "I spent 32 years being okay with my own erasure," I said. "Today, they get to be uncomfortable with the truth." Jessica nodded slowly. "Security is briefed. Conference room A is prepared. Documents are ready. We'll be there by noon to do final checks. Thank you, Jess, for everything. For believing in me when I was nobody." "You were never nobody, Alex. You were just waiting for the right moment to be seen." After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long moment, drinking coffee and watching the city wake up. Somewhere out there, Kate was probably rehearsing her presentation, perfecting her pitch, preparing to impress a founder she'd never meet. Somewhere else, my mother was probably planning my new life, the one where I moved home and served Kate's family. They had no idea that in 9 hours, their entire understanding of reality would shatter. I finished my coffee and went to shower. Today required careful presentation, not the thrift store costume I'd worn for them, and not the CEO armor I wore for board meetings. Today, I needed to be both, integrated, whole, undeniable. By 11 a.m., I was at Morrigan's Books. The storefront looked exactly as it always did. Hand-painted sign, window displays featuring local authors, a wreath on the blue door. Inside, the familiar smell of old paper and coffee greeted me. Wooden shelves stuffed with books, worn armchairs, string lights casting warm pools of light. This place was real. I'd bought it 5 years ago not as a cover, but because I genuinely loved it. The community needed a bookstore after the last one closed, so I provided one. The fact that it also served as a perfect disguise, that was just efficient planning. I walked through the store, straightening books, adjusting displays. The weekend manager had done a good job keeping everything running smoothly. In a few hours, I'd close early, citing holiday hours. Then I'd activate the hidden door. I made my way to the classical literature section. Dickens, Austen, Bronte, Morrison. My hand rested on the spine of a leather-bound copy of Jane Eyre, a favorite from childhood, about a woman who refused to make herself small for anyone. I pressed the spine in a specific sequence. A soft click echoed through the empty store. The bookshelf shuddered slightly, then began to swing inward on hidden hinges. Behind it, a sleek security vestibule glowed with cool LED lighting, biometric scanners, reinforced steel door, security cameras. I placed my palm on the scanner. "Welcome, Founder Morrison," the system's automated voice said softly. The inner door slid open with a whisper of hydraulics. Beyond it, Apex Vault's executive suite. The contrast was deliberately jarring, from cozy bookstore to cutting-edge technology in 3 steps. The office space was all glass and chrome, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the arts district. Interactive touchscreens lined the walls. The conference table was illuminated from beneath, giving it an ethereal glow. This was where I really worked, where I'd built a billion-dollar empire, where I made decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions of users worldwide. Jessica was already there, along with our head of security and our chief counsel. "The Morrison family," I said, walking to the conference table. "I need them treated like any other potential partners. Professional, respectful, but no special treatment." "Understood," Jessica replied. "Security knows to escort them from the bookstore entrance. Standard protocol." "And the evidence on Derek?" Our counsel, an older woman named Patricia Hawthorne, no relation to my mother, thank God, opened a folder. "We have everything documented and verified. If Mrs. Morrison wants to pursue charges, we can provide the evidence to federal prosecutors. Don't present it unless Derek's misconduct directly impacts our discussion," I said. "Kate deserves to hear this from me, not from lawyers." Jessica studied me carefully. "You still care about her." "I care about the truth. Kate built her career on real merit. She deserves to know it's not contaminated by her husband's crimes. And if she can't separate the two, if this destroys her anyway," I looked out the windows at the city below. Somewhere out there, my family was preparing for what they thought would be Kate's coronation, her big moment, her validation. "Then she'll rebuild," I said, "like I did, in the rubble of demolished illusions." At 1:47 p.m., security notified me that 2 SUVs had pulled up outside the bookstore. I watched on the monitors as my family emerged. Kate was first, wearing a tailored navy suit that screamed executive. My mother followed in an expensive coat, my father in his usual business casual. Derek looked nervous, checking his phone constantly. Eleanor emerged last, moving slowly with her cane. They stood on the sidewalk, looking around with visible confusion. My mother's voice came through the external audio feed. "Why are we meeting at Lexi's bookstore?" Kate, checking her own phone. The address Apex Vault sent was definitely this block. "Maybe their offices are nearby?" "This seems unprofessional," my father muttered. "Making us meet in this neighborhood." The arts district. The neighborhood I'd helped revitalize, where I'd invested in small businesses, funded public art, created community programs. They saw it as beneath them. I activated my mic. "Send them in." Security opened the bookstore door from inside, gesturing for them to enter. I watched on the monitors as my family filed into Morrigan's books. Their expressions ranged from polite confusion, Eleanor, to barely concealed disdain, Derek. "It's quaint," Aunt Martha said, the word dripping with false praise. "Charming," Uncle James added, in a tone that meant the opposite. Kate looked around with the air of someone touring a museum exhibit on poverty. "I didn't realize Lexi's shop was so humble." My mother touched a stack of used paperbacks as if they might contaminate her. "It must be comforting, dear, to have something small to care for." Something small. I'd heard that phrase so many times in the past 24 hours, as if smallness was my natural state, my deserved limitation. On the monitor, I watched myself, the real me in a charcoal blazer and tailored pants, emerge from the back office of the bookstore. "You're all here," I said calmly. "Good. The meeting location is this way." My father checked his watch impatiently. "Alexandra, we can't be late. This meeting is crucial for Kate's career." "I know," I said. "Follow me." I led them toward the classical literature section. They followed, confused but compliant, assuming I was leading them to a back exit, to a nearby building, to somewhere that made sense. I stopped in front of the shelf. Here? My mother asked, bewildered. I didn't answer, just placed my palm on the spine of Jane Eyre. Click. The bookshelf shuddered. Gasps echoed through the small space as the entire shelf began to swing inward like a door in a spy film. Behind it, the security vestibule glowed with cool, professional lighting. Biometric scanners, corporate signage, the Apex Vault logo etched in steel. What? Kate stepped forward, her voice strangled. What is this? My mother's hand flew to her chest. Lexi, what on earth? This way, please, I said, gesturing them forward. They moved like people in a dream, stepping through the hidden door into the vestibule. The bookshelf swung closed behind them with a soft, pneumatic hiss. I placed my palm on the biometric scanner. The automated system responded immediately. Welcome, Founder Morrison. Access granted. The inner door slid open. Beyond it, Apex Vault's executive suite in all its glory. Glass walls, chrome fixtures, interactive displays showing real-time market data, global operations, financial dashboards. The conference table dominated the center of the room, its surface glowing with embedded LED lighting. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Boston's skyline spread out like a promise. My family stood frozen in the doorway. This, Robert breathed. This is unbelievable. Are we in the right place? Patricia whispered. Derek had gone pale, his eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal looking for exits. Kate turned slowly, her expression caught between awe and confusion. Why is Apex Vault headquarters behind your bookstore? Why would they build something like this here? Eleanor stepped forward, gripping her cane. She studied the room carefully, the technology, the displays, the obvious expense. Then she turned to look at me. Really look at me. At my posture, confident, controlled. At my clothing, expensive, professional. At my expression, calm, certain, powerful. Because, Eleanor said slowly, her voice carrying the weight of understanding, the bookstore was never the point. Kate frowned. What does that mean, Grandma? Eleanor's eyes never left my face. It means we've been blind. The overhead audio system activated with a soft chime. Jessica's voice, professional and warm. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Apex Vault Technologies. The founder will join you shortly. Please make yourselves comfortable. My mother actually squeaked. The founder? Here? Today? Kate immediately began straightening her blazer, smoothing her hair. Everyone, be professional. This is everything we've prepared for. Robert looked around with undisguised awe. We're meeting a billionaire in our daughter's bookstore. Eleanor smiled, but it was sad. Knowing. No, Robert, you're meeting your daughter. What? Patricia turned to her. Mother, what are you talking about? But Eleanor just gestured toward me with her cane, waiting. The moment stretched, crystalline and fragile. I walked toward the executive desk at the front of the room. My desk, though they didn't know it yet. Each step felt like crossing a threshold, leaving one life behind, stepping fully into another. Kate watched me move, confusion growing. Lexi, what are you doing? I placed my hand on the glass surface of the desk. The entire room came alive. Screens flickered to life, showing systems only the founder could access. Financial dashboards, executive directories, proprietary code, real-time operations across 6 continents, and in the corner of every screen, in small, unmistakable text, Founder A. H. Morrison, access granted. The automated voice spoke again. Founder authentication confirmed, all systems active. The silence in the room was absolute. My mother's knees actually buckled. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. My father's face had gone gray. Kate stood frozen, her mouth opening and closing without sound. Derek took a step backward, as if physically retreating from the truth. Only Eleanor remained steady, nodding slowly, as if something she'd long suspected had finally been confirmed. I turned to face them. My family. The people who'd raised me, dismissed me, tried to fix me just hours before. Welcome to Apex Vault Technologies headquarters, I said quietly. I appreciate you all coming. More silence. Shocked, disbelieving, absolute. My name is Alexandra Hayes Morrison. I let each word land with weight. Hayes was my middle name, the one on my birth certificate that you all forgot about, the one I never used in the family 'cause you only ever called me Lexi. Kate found her voice, though it came out strangled. No, you work at a bookstore. You can barely— I own the bookstore, I interrupted gently. It's one of several small businesses under Apex Vault's community initiative. The building was purchased 5 years ago. The renovation that created this office space was completed 3 years ago. But the founder, my father started. Is me, I finished. I founded Apex Vault Technologies 8 years ago at age 24. I built every division you admire. I designed the systems Kate has been studying for her presentation. I created the enterprise solutions that made us industry leaders. I pulled up a display on the main screen. News articles, industry recognition, awards with my name carefully redacted, financial reports, growth charts. Everything you think you know about Apex Vault, I said, came from my mind, my work, my vision. Patricia made a sound between a sob and a gasp. Robert sank into a chair, his face slack with shock. Kate laughed, a desperate, fractured sound. This is a joke. This is some kind of elaborate— It's not a joke, Kate. You work at a bookstore. You wear thrift store clothes. You can barely afford rent. I wear thrift store clothes when I visit you, I corrected, because I learned early that showing you my real life would only make things worse. Why? My mother's voice was barely above a whisper. Why would you hide something like this? I looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman who'd organized an intervention to fix her broken daughter. Because you would only value me if I were useful to you, I said simply. I needed to know if you could love me for who I am, not what I have. But we're your family. And last night, you gave me a bag of job applications and offered me a position as Kate's assistant. The words hung in the air like smoke. Robert ran his hands through his hair. My God, we tried to give you job applications. We offered you advice on how to get your life together. We tried to fix you, Kate whispered, horror dawning in her eyes. Yes, I said gently. You did. Derek found his voice, though it shook. So you're the one reviewing Riverton's partnership proposal? I turned to him and I saw him flinch at what he saw in my expression. Yes. And your decision? Will be based on integrity. His face drained of what little color it had left. Kate stepped forward, her perfect composure cracking. Why behind a bookstore? Why this whole elaborate disguise? Because I wanted to build something without your interference, I said. Without constant comparisons to you. Without being overshadowed by the daughter they chose to elevate. We chose to elevate? Patricia repeated. We didn't. You did, Eleanor interrupted firmly. We all did. We treated Kate like royalty and Alexandra like a charity case. Don't pretend otherwise now. Silence again. Kate's hands trembled. Everything I said last night, everything I planned for you, the assistant position, the goals, Her voice broke. Oh, God. You thought small, I said, because you saw me as small. Tears began streaming down her face. Silent, devastating tears. We spent our whole lives believing you were the disappointing one, the one who couldn't figure things out, the one who needed saving. And all this time, Robert said hollowly, you were the genius. I'm not a genius, I corrected. I'm just someone who stopped needing your approval to define my worth. Patricia moved forward, reaching out. Sweetheart, we didn't know. If you'd known, would it have mattered? I asked. Would you have treated me differently if I'd been poor but kind, struggling but brilliant? Or did I only become valuable once you learned I was successful? She stopped, hand frozen mid-reach, unable to answer. My phone buzzed on the desk. I glanced at it. Jessica. Derek's situation escalating. He's trying to leave. Security is holding position, but we need to address this. I looked up at Derek, who'd moved toward the door. Mr. Ashford, I said calmly, we're not finished yet. Derek turned, his face a mask of forced innocence. I just need to make a call. Work emergency. I know about the work emergency, I said. Sit down, please. He froze. Kate looked between us, sensing the shift in atmosphere. What's going on? My phone lit up with an incoming file transfer. Jessica, sending the evidence package to my display. Before we discuss any potential partnership between Apex Vault and Riverton Financial, I said, pulling up a document on the main screen. There's something Kate needs to know. Derek's voice came out harsh. This is inappropriate. Whatever you think you know. 18 months of falsified financial reports, I said calmly, displaying the first document. $3.2 million in unauthorized transfers, forged signatures, manipulated expense accounts. Kate's face went white. What? Your husband, I said, looking at her with genuine sympathy, has been embezzling from Riverton Financial, using company funds to cover gambling debts and failed cryptocurrency investments. That's a lie, Derek snarled. She's making this up because I ran a standard compliance check on all companies seeking partnerships with Apex Vault, I interrupted. It's routine due diligence. I pulled up another screen. Bank transfers, casino records, loan shark payment schedules. Derek has been covering his tracks through increasingly sloppy forgery. He was hoping that a partnership with Apex Vault would provide enough cash flow and credibility to hide the discrepancies permanently. Kate stared at the evidence on the screen, then turned to Derek with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Not anger, not hurt, something more fundamental. Betrayal. Have you been using me? She asked quietly. Derek didn't answer. Kate, I said gently, pulling her attention back to me. I need you to hear this. Your divisions are clean. Your work is excellent. You earned your CFO position through genuine merit. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. But Derek has contaminated Riverton's financial integrity. Any partnership between our companies is impossible while he remains in any position of authority. I pulled up more documents, emails where Derek instructed junior accountants to adjust the numbers, threats to employees who questioned discrepancies, evidence of witness intimidation. This goes beyond financial crimes, I continued. This is systemic corruption. My father stood, looking at Derek with disgust. You brought this man into our family. Patricia's voice shook with fury. Everything Kate's built, you've been destroying it from the inside. Derek's composure shattered. He turned on me with sudden venom. You think you're so smart, so righteous? You're just a bookstore girl with delusions of grandeur. And you, I replied calmly, are a criminal who's about to face federal prosecution. You can't prove any of this, Derek shouted, but his voice had turned desperate. I gestured to the screens surrounding us. Every document here is verified and legally obtained. If Kate wants to pursue charges, our legal team will provide everything to federal prosecutors. Kate stepped away from Derek, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach, protecting her unborn child from the man she'd married. Get out, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Kate, you need to listen. Get out! She screamed it this time, the sound raw and primal. Derek looked around the room, seeing only condemnation. His last attempt at control. If you do this, everyone will know. Your precious family name will be dragged through the mud. Let them know, Kate said. I'd rather be humiliated by the truth than protected by your lies. Derek stared at her for a long moment, then at me. His expression turned cold and calculating. You're going to regret this, he said to me. All of you will. He walked toward the door. Security materialized from the corridor, ready to escort him out. Before he left, he turned back one last time. I'll make sure everyone knows. The press, your competitors, everyone. Good, I said simply. I'm tired of hiding anyway. The door slid shut behind him with a pneumatic hiss. The silence that followed felt different, heavier, more honest. Kate stood alone in the center of the room, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. My mother moved toward her, then stopped, uncertain if comfort would be welcome. Eleanor broke the silence. The truth always has a cost, but lies cost more in the end. I looked at my family, my real family, stripped of pretense and performance. They looked smaller somehow, more human, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. "I need to sit down," Kate said faintly. I gestured to the conference table. "We should all sit." They moved like people in shock, settling into chairs around the table where I'd hosted meetings with Fortune 500 executives, where I'd negotiated billion-dollar deals, where I'd built an empire they never suspected existed. And finally, they were ready to listen, ready to see me, ready for the truth about who their daughter, their sister, their granddaughter had been all along. The invisible woman had become undeniable, and nothing would ever be the same. After Derek's exit, no one spoke. The conference room felt too large suddenly, too empty despite being filled with people. The screens still displayed evidence of Derek's crimes, harsh numbers and transactions glowing in the dim light. I reached over and closed them with a gesture, returning the room to neutral displays. Kate sat in her chair like a statue. Her hands rested flat on the glass table, fingers spread as if she needed to touch something solid to believe it was real. Her breathing was shallow, controlled, the kind of breathing people do when they're trying not to fall apart. Patricia stood near the windows, one hand pressed to her mouth. She'd aged 10 years in the past 30 minutes. Robert stared at his iPad, but the screen had gone dark. He wasn't really looking at it anyway. Eleanor was the only one who seemed composed. She settled into a chair at the table's head. Not the founder's position, which was mine, but the matriarch's position. The elder, the witness to family implosion. I remained standing near my desk, giving them space to process. This was the moment I'd anticipated for 8 years, but now that it had arrived, I felt no triumph. Just a hollow ache where satisfaction should have been. "Alexandra," Eleanor said finally, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Come sit with your family." Not Lexi. Alexandra. My full name. Recognition of who I actually was. I moved to the table and sat. Kate's voice came out barely above a whisper. "I'm pregnant with his child." The words fell into the silence like stones into still water. "Everything I thought I had," she continued, her voice beginning to shake. "My marriage, my career trajectory, my entire future. It was built on his lies. Was any of it real?" I leaned forward. "Your career is real, Kate. You're genuinely talented. Derek tried to use that talent, but he didn't create it. You did." She looked up at me with eyes so raw it hurt to meet them. "How can you be kind to me? After everything I did to you? After last night?" "Because you're my sister," I said simply. "And because I remember who you were before all this. Before the competition. Before they made us into rivals instead of family. I don't even know who I am anymore." Her voice cracked completely. My whole identity was built on being the successful Morrison daughter, the one who did everything right, the one who made everyone proud. Tears began streaming down her face. Not delicate, photogenic tears, but ugly, body-shaking sobs. "And now I'm the fool who married a criminal, who's pregnant with a felon's baby, who got so caught up in looking successful that I couldn't see I was being used." Patricia moved toward her daughter but stopped halfway, uncertain if comfort would be welcome. The distance between them, physical and emotional, was painful to watch. I stood and walked around the table. Kate looked up at me with something like fear, as if she thought I might deliver another blow. Instead, I wrapped my arms around her. She collapsed against me, sobbing into my shoulder. Her body shook with the force of it, years of perfect composure finally shattering. "I'm so sorry," she gasped between sobs. "Alex, I'm so sorry. For everything. For how I treated you. For never seeing you. For—" "I know," I said quietly. "I know." We stayed like that for a long moment. Two sisters who'd spent decades on opposite sides of an artificial divide, finally touching across it. When Kate finally pulled back, her makeup was destroyed, her hair disheveled. She looked more real than I'd ever seen her. "What happens now?" she asked. Now, I said, we deal with the truth, all of it. Patricia's voice trembled from across the room. Alexandra, there's something else you need to know. I turned to her. My mother looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of secrets she'd been carrying. Mom, not now, Kate started. No. Patricia's voice strengthened. She deserves to know, all of it. No more secrets. Robert stood abruptly. Patricia, we agreed. We agreed to protect a lie, Robert. Look where that got us. She turned to face me fully. That yellow envelope from last night, the one marked Estate Review. My stomach tightened. I'd known there was something there. Something hidden. It contains documents about your grandfather's will, Patricia continued. About property he left you. Eleanor's cane tapped sharply against the floor. Finally. Grandma? I looked at her. You knew? I knew your grandfather intended to leave you the land near the Arts District, the property where your bookstore now stands. Eleanor's eyes were hard. What I didn't know until recently was that Patricia had redirected the inheritance. The room went very still. You what? Kate's voice cut through the silence. Patricia's face crumpled. After your grandfather died, I changed the estate paperwork. I told myself it was temporary, that Alexandra was too young, too unfocused, that she couldn't handle the responsibility. My hands clenched on the table edge. What did you do with it? I gave it to Kate. The words came out barely audible. For her first investment property, the one she sold 5 years ago for $800,000. Kate stood so abruptly her chair rolled backward. That property, the one that funded my first major investment, that was supposed to be Alex's? Your grandfather saw himself in Alexandra, Eleanor said, her voice carrying steel. He knew she had the mind of an entrepreneur. The will specifically stated, to Alexandra Hayes Morrison, the land and property at 447 Newberry Street, as I recognize in her the same quiet fire that built this family's fortune. The address, 447 Newberry Street, where my bookstore now stood, where I'd purchased the building 5 years ago, not knowing it should have been mine all along. You stole my inheritance, I said, my voice eerily calm, and gave it to Kate. Patricia was crying now, but I felt no sympathy. I convinced myself I was protecting you, that you weren't ready, that Kate needed it more. Needed it? My voice rose. Or deserved it, because she was the successful one, the one worth investing in? I was wrong. Patricia's voice broke completely. I was so wrong, I see that now. But at the time, I thought, you thought I was a failure, I finished. So why waste an inheritance on someone who'd probably squander it? Robert found his voice. Patricia, how could you do this? How could you change legal documents and not tell anyone? The same way you signed off on the intervention, Eleanor snapped. The same way you all convinced yourselves that Alexandra needed fixing instead of seeing. This family has been rewriting reality to suit its preferences for years. I stood, needing to move, needing space. I walked to the windows and stared out at Boston's skyline. At the Arts District I'd helped revitalize. At the building I'd purchased with my own money. Money I'd earned building a company from nothing. The bitter irony. I'd bought my own inheritance without knowing it. $800,000, Kate whispered behind me. That was the foundation of everything I built. My investments, my portfolio, my reputation as someone who made smart financial decisions. She turned to our mother, her face stricken. I built my success on stolen property, on Alex's stolen future. No, I said, turning back to face them. You built your success on talent and hard work. The property was just capital. You could have succeeded without it. But I didn't have to struggle because I had it, Kate said. While you, her voice broke, while you actually started from nothing. Eleanor stood, gripping her cane, commanding attention without raising her voice. Since we're finally telling the truth, she said, let me fill in the gaps. Your grandfather, Thomas Morrison, made his fortune in real estate development. He was brilliant, but more than that, he was observant. She looked at me with warmth I hadn't seen in years. When Alexandra was 12, Thomas showed me drawings she'd made, business plans, architectural designs, revenue projections for a company that would make computers talk to each other better. I remembered those drawings. I'd thought everyone had forgotten. He told me, "This child sees patterns no one else notices. She'll build something extraordinary if we don't crush it out of her." Eleanor's voice hardened. "And we nearly did." Patricia sobbed quietly. "Thomas knew this family's tendency to anoint one child as the golden one," Eleanor continued. "He'd seen it in his own generation, so he wrote that will specifically to give Alexandra resources independent of family approval." "But Mom changed it," Kate said hollowly. "Not immediately," Eleanor corrected. "She changed it 2 years after Thomas died, when Alexandra was 18 and applying to colleges, when it became clear Alexandra wasn't following the expected path." Robert's face had gone gray. "You told me the property transfer was what Thomas wanted, that he'd changed his mind before he died." "I lied," Patricia said flatly. "I forged documents. I convinced myself it was for the good of the family, that having one extremely successful daughter was better than 2 mediocre ones." "Except," I said quietly, "I was never mediocre. I was just invisible to you." I walked back to the table and sat down. 8 years of secrets, of hiding, of watching my family from behind a mask. All of it was coming to the surface now. "Do you want to know why I really hid who I was?" I asked. They all looked at me, waiting. "It wasn't just about building something alone. It was an experiment." "An experiment?" Robert repeated. "In love," I clarified. "I wanted to know if you could love me, really love me, when I had nothing you valued, no career success, no fancy title, no money, no achievements worth bragging about." The words hurt to say, but they needed to be spoken. "I needed to know if your love was conditional, if it only existed when I was useful, accomplished, worthy by your standards." Kate's voice was raw. "And we failed." "Spectacularly," I agreed. "Last night you didn't just tell me I needed help. You organized an intervention, made me a project, gave me job applications like I was someone to be fixed rather than someone to be known." Patricia reached out across the table. "Sweetheart." "Don't," I said, pulling back. "I'm not finished. The worst part wasn't the job applications or the condescension or even the stolen inheritance." I looked at each of them in turn. "The worst part was that none of you ever asked me what I wanted, what I dreamed about, what made me happy. You just assumed I was failing because I didn't look successful by your definition." "You're right," Robert said, his voice thick. "We never asked. We just decided who you were." "And when who I was didn't match your narrative," I continued, "you tried to rewrite me, make me smaller, make me fit." The silence that followed was absolute. Kate stood abruptly, pacing to the windows and back. "My entire self-worth," she said, her voice shaking, "was built on being better than you, on being the daughter who succeeded while you struggled." She stopped, facing me. "I needed you to fail so I could feel successful. I measured my worth by how far ahead of you I was." "I know," I said simply. "And all this time," her laugh was bitter, broken. "All this time, you were ahead of everyone. You built something I can't even comprehend. You became the thing I only pretended to be." "Kate, no, let me say this." She moved closer. "I'm not just apologizing for last night. I'm apologizing for 32 years of treating you like you were less than me, for accepting that narrative, for never questioning why I deserved more love, more support, more investment." Tears streamed down her face again. "I don't know who I am if I'm not the best Morrison daughter." I stood and looked her directly in the eyes. "Then maybe it's time to find out who Kate Morrison is when she's not competing with anyone." Robert cleared his throat. "Alexandra, what happens with the partnership?" I'd known this question was coming. I'd prepared my answer for weeks. Riverton Financial, I said formally, switching into CEO mode, cannot be approved for partnership with Apex Vault, while Derek Ashford remains in any position of authority and while the financial discrepancies remain unresolved. Kate nodded, accepting. I understand. However, I continued, I'm offering an alternative path. She looked up, surprised. Kate, you and your team will remove Derek immediately. You'll bring in an independent auditor, not chosen by me to avoid conflict of interest. You'll submit to a full integrity review. I pulled up a document on the main screen. If after 12 months, Riverton demonstrates structural integrity and ethical operations, Apex Vault will reconsider a scaled partnership. You'd still consider working with us? Patricia asked, disbelieving. After everything? I'm judging the company, not punishing the family, I said. Kate's divisions are profitable and well run. She earned her position through merit. I won't penalize good work because of one person's crimes. Kate's voice came out hoarse. Why would you do this for me? I looked at my sister, at the woman who'd spent years treating me like I was less than, who'd offered me a job as her assistant, who'd accepted my erasure as natural. Because, I said quietly, you're capable of better, and because someone should have believed in you for the right reasons, not just the successful ones. She burst into tears again. Robert stood. What about the media? When this gets out, Derek's crimes, the family dynamics, your hidden identity, it's going to be everywhere. As if on cue, my phone erupted with notifications. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. Urgent. Call now. I answered, putting it on speaker. What is it? Alex, we have a situation. Someone leaked. Jessica's voice was tight with stress. News outlets are running stories. Mystery billionaire revealed. Apex Vault founder hid behind bookstore. The press is already gathering outside your building. Kate's face went white. Derek, he said he'd make sure everyone knew. Revenge, Eleanor said grimly. The last weapon of a small man. My phone exploded again. News alerts, social media mentions, reporter requests. In the span of 30 seconds, my private life had become public property. I looked at my family, at their shocked, scared faces. This would affect all of them, their names, their reputations, their carefully curated images. Everything would be exposed. We need to control the narrative, I said, switching fully into crisis mode. Right now. I pulled up news feeds on the main screen. The headlines were already proliferating. Tech mogul's secret identity, Apex Vault founder, was hiding in plain sight. Boston bookstore owner revealed as billionaire CEO. Family drama, sister had no idea, sibling built empire. Some outlets had photos. Blurry shots of me entering the bookstore, professional headshots Jessica had used for internal company materials. Someone had even dug up my college graduation photo. How did they get all this so fast? Patricia asked, horrified. Derek probably had a press package prepared, I said, scanning the articles. Contact information, photos, talking points designed to make me look deceptive and the family look victimized. One article quoted an anonymous source close to the family. She deceived everyone who loved her, made them think she was struggling while secretly hoarding wealth. Kate read it over my shoulder. That's not what happened. Doesn't matter, I said. The story's out there now. We have 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours before reporters figure out you're all here. Before they start calling your phones, showing up at your houses, digging into family history. Robert's hands shook. Our privacy is gone, I finished. I'm sorry. I knew this might happen eventually, but I hoped we'd control when and how. Eleanor's voice cut through the rising panic. So we control it now. Alexandra, what do we need to do? My phone rang. Jessica again. The board wants an emergency meeting, she said. Investors are calling. Some panicked, some supportive. Stock price is... She paused. Actually, rising. Rising, I repeated, surprised. The market loves a mystery solved, and the narrative of genius founder building empire in secret is playing well. But Alex, you need to make a statement. Soon, before speculation fills the void. I looked at my family. Can you give me 5 minutes? They nodded, and I stepped into my private office adjacent to the conference room. Through the glass wall, I could see them sitting in stunned silence, processing everything. Jessica's face appeared on my screen. What do you need? A press conference. Today. In 2 hours, if possible. Alex, that's insane. We haven't prepared. I'll speak from the heart. No script. No corporate polish. Just truth. Jessica studied me. You're sure? I've been hiding for 8 years, Jess. I'm done. If the story's going to come out, it comes out on my terms. What about your family? I looked through the glass at them, broken, scared, but still there. They'll stand with me, or they won't. Either way, we face this honestly. Okay. Jessica shifted into operational mode. I'll arrange a venue. Apex Vault headquarters downtown, the official building. Not the bookstore location. Perfect. Alex, this is going to change your life? Permanently. I know, I said. But living in hiding was changing my life too. At least this way, I'm choosing it. I returned to the conference room. My family looked up expectantly. In 2 hours, I said. I'm holding a press conference at Apex Vault's downtown headquarters. I'm going to explain everything. Why I hid my identity, why I built the company in secret, all of it. We'll come with you, Kate said immediately. I shook my head. You don't have to? Yes, we do. She stood, her voice stronger than before. You faced us alone in this room. The least we can do is stand with you publicly. Patricia nodded. She's right. This is family business. We should face it as a family. Even though it will expose your mistakes? I asked pointedly. The intervention, the stolen inheritance, all of it? Robert met my eyes. Especially because of that. If we're going to rebuild trust, it starts with accountability. Eleanor tapped her cane approvingly. Finally, some wisdom from this family. I studied them carefully. This could be another performance, another attempt to control the narrative for their benefit. But something in their faces looked different. Raw, more honest. Okay, I said, but we do this with complete honesty. No spinning, no protecting egos. The truth, even when it's ugly. They agreed. We spent the next hour preparing. Not rehearsing answers, I refused to script anything, but discussing boundaries, deciding what we would and wouldn't address publicly. A reporter's question came through my email. Ms. Morrison, did you hide your identity to test your family's love? Patricia read it over my shoulder and flinched. Are you going to answer that? Yes, I said, because it's true. It makes us look terrible. You acted terribly, I said bluntly. I'm not going to lie to protect that. Kate intervened. Mom, she's right. If we start lying now, we're just creating new problems. Seen another email, this one from a business reporter. Will the revelation affect Apex Vault's operations or partnerships? No, I said confidently. The company's structure is solid. My team has known about the situation. The only people surprised are my family and the public. Robert's phone rang. He checked it and grimaced. It's Aunt Martha. Probably saw the news. Don't answer, I advised. Not until after the press conference. Once we've made our statement, you can deal with extended family. He nodded, silencing the phone. My secure line rang, the one only a few people had access to. I answered. Alex, it's Daniel Brooks, my family attorney, the only person outside Apex Vault who'd known my full story. I'm seeing the news. Are you all right? Define all right, I said wryly. Do you need legal counsel at the press conference? No, I need to speak as myself, not hide behind lawyers. Understood. But Alex, I have the original documents from your grandfather's will, the ones Patricia altered. If you want to pursue legal action, I glanced at my mother, who'd gone very pale. Send them to me, I said, but I'm not making any decisions about legal action today. Right now, we just deal with the truth. When I hung up, Patricia was crying silently. I know you can destroy me legally, she said. I know I deserve it. This isn't about what you deserve, I said wearily. It's about what serves healing versus what serves revenge. I haven't decided which I want yet. Eleanor spoke up. The press conference starts in 90 minutes. We should prepare to leave. Kate looked down at her rumpled suit, her destroyed makeup. I can't go in front of cameras looking like this. There's a bathroom down the hall, I said. Take what time you need. But Kate? She looked up. Don't make yourself perfect. People need to see that this hurt you too. She nodded, understanding. As they dispersed to prepare, I stood alone in my conference room, the room where I'd built an empire in secret, and wondered what would be left when the truth finished burning through our lives. Apex Vault's downtown headquarters was a gleaming tower in Boston's financial district. Unlike the hidden office behind the bookstore, this was the public face of the company. 20 floors of glass and steel, home to 3,000 employees. We arrived through the underground garage to avoid the reporters already gathering in the lobby. Security escorted us to the 20th floor, where Jessica had arranged a conference room with a podium, microphones, and seating for press. Through the windows, I could see news vans below, satellite trucks, reporters testing equipment. My story had become the story. Kate emerged from the bathroom, makeup minimal, hair simply pulled back. She looked vulnerable, human, nothing like the polished executive from yesterday. How do I look? She asked nervously. Real, I said. That's what matters. Jessica appeared with a tablet. We have 43 confirmed press attendees, major networks, tech journals, business publications, even some tabloids. Let them all in, I said. No favorites, no exclusives. Alex, you should know. Some reporters are already running with negative angles. Deceptive billionaire. Family betrayal. Questions about your ethics. I'd expected this. What about positive coverage? Wall Street Journal is running with visionary founder builds empire without fanfare. TechCrunch is emphasizing your company's innovation. The Atlantic wants to do a deep dive on women in tech hiding their success. Multiple narratives already forming. Patricia touched my arm. Alexandra, I need to say something before we go out there. I turned to face her. If you want to tell them I stole your inheritance, I won't fight it. If you want to expose everything I did wrong, I deserve it. Her voice shook but held steady. I won't ask you to protect me anymore. I looked at the woman who'd raised me, who'd loved me, who'd also hurt me more deeply than anyone else could. I'm not protecting you, I said finally. I'm telling the truth, and the truth is complicated. You failed me, but you also gave me the drive to prove I didn't need your approval. You stole my inheritance, but I built something worth far more without it. That doesn't absolve me. No, I agreed. It doesn't. But I'm done letting your failures define my story. The conference room was packed. Reporters filled every seat, with camera crews lining the walls. The energy was electric, anticipation mixed with judgment, curiosity laced with skepticism. I stepped up to the podium. No notes, no prepared remarks. Just me and the truth. Jessica stood to the side, ready to intervene if needed. My family sat in the front row, a united front, however fractured. Good afternoon, I began. I'm Alexandra Hayes Morrison, founder and CEO of Apex Vault Technologies. Camera flashes erupted like small explosions. I'd like to address the recent revelations about my identity. Yes, I founded this company 8 years ago under my full legal name, which differs from the family name most people knew me by. Yes, I built it largely in secret, using legal structures designed to protect my privacy. And yes, my own family had no idea who I was professionally. I paused, letting that sink in. I know this raises questions about ethics, transparency, and trust, so I want to explain why I made these choices. I glanced at my family. They were listening intently. When I was 24, I had an idea for enterprise software that would revolutionize how companies share data. I also had a family that loved me but didn't believe in me, a family that had already decided who I was and who I wasn't. A reporter's hand shot up. I ignored it. I learned early that when you don't fit the narrative your family writes for you, you have two choices: fight to change that narrative or build a new one somewhere they can't interfere. I chose the latter. Ms. Morrison, a reporter called out, standing without being called on. Are you saying you hid your success out of spite, to punish your family? No, I said firmly. I hid my success because I wanted to know if my family could love me without it. I wanted to discover if their affection was conditional on my achievements. And what did you discover? I looked directly at the camera. That love can be both genuine and conditional. My family loved me, but they loved the idea of who I should be more than who I actually was. Patricia's face crumpled, but she didn't look away. Another reporter. What about the timing? Why reveal yourself now? I didn't choose the timing. My brother-in-law chose it when he leaked my identity after I discovered his criminal activities within his company. Murmurs rippled through the room. Derek Ashford was embezzling from Riverton Financial, the company where my sister serves as CFO. When I refused to ignore his crimes, he retaliated by exposing me. A business journalist stood. Are you saying this revelation is retaliation for whistleblowing? I'm saying the truth came out messily, but it was going to come out eventually. I was tired of hiding. Ms. Morrison, a woman from the Boston Globe called out, reports indicate your family held an intervention for you just last night, believing you were struggling. Can you address that? This was the question I'd known was coming. I looked at my family again. Kate nodded slightly, giving permission. Yes, I said carefully. My family believed I was working a minimum wage job and struggling to make ends meet. Last night, they staged an intervention to help me get my life together. They offered me job applications and a position as my sister's assistant. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. They did this because they loved me, I continued, but also because they'd never really seen me. They saw their assumption of who I was, not who I'd become. Before another question could be asked, Kate stood. May I say something? She asked, her voice carrying across the room. Reporters swiveled to face her, cameras zooming in. I'm Catherine Morrison, CFO of Riverton Financial and Alexandra's sister. She moved to stand beside me at the podium. Everything she just said is true. We held an intervention. We tried to fix her. We treated her like a failure. Her voice broke slightly, but she pushed through. I came to what I thought was a business meeting yesterday, expecting to impress the founder of Apex Vault. Instead, I discovered the founder was my sister, the sister I'd spent 32 years underestimating, dismissing, and treating as less than. Silence in the room. Every reporter was riveted. Alex has every right to be angry with us, to cut us off, to publicly shame us. Kate turned to look at me. But she's not doing that. She's telling the truth, even though it hurts her too, even though it exposes her pain. Ms. Morrison, a reporter called to Kate. Are you saying your family discriminated against your sister? Kate flinched but answered honestly. Yes. We elevated me and diminished her. We invested in my future and ignored hers. We treated her success like it was impossible and my success like it was inevitable. Why? Because it was easier, Kate admitted. Because having one successful daughter and one struggling daughter gave us a clear narrative, clear roles, clear hierarchy. Patricia stood now too, moving to the podium. I'm Patricia Morrison, their mother. Oh no, I hadn't expected this. I want to take responsibility for my part in this, she said, her voice trembling but clear. I stole my daughter's inheritance. After her grandfather died, I changed estate documents to redirect property to Catherine that should have gone to Alexandra. The room exploded. I told myself I was protecting her, that she wasn't ready for that responsibility. But the truth is, I didn't believe in her. I didn't think she could succeed, so I invested in the daughter I thought would. Cameras flashed frantically. I know this may have legal consequences, Patricia continued. I know I've damaged my relationship with my daughter irreparably, but I won't stand here and let Alexandra take sole responsibility for family dysfunction I created. She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. You deserved better from all of us. I stood there, stunned. This wasn't what I'd planned. I'd expected to face the press alone, to control my own narrative. Instead, my family was voluntarily exposing their failures, taking accountability without being forced. Robert stood and joined us. I'm Robert Morrison, their father. I enabled all of this. I went along with the intervention. I never questioned why we treated our daughter so differently. I failed Alexandra by being passive when I should have been protective. Eleanor remained seated, but her voice carried. And I'm Eleanor Morrison, the grandmother. I knew something was wrong with how this family treated Alexandra, but I didn't speak up strongly enough. I'm guilty of being complicit through silence. The four of them, my parents, my sister, my grandmother, standing publicly accountable for how they'd treated me. It was the last thing I'd expected, and somehow the most important. A reporter called out, "Miss Morrison, Alexandra, how do you respond to your family's apologies?" I looked at them, at their imperfect, painful honesty. "I respond," I said slowly, "by saying that accountability is just the first step. Apologies matter, but changed behavior matters more. My family hurt me deeply, but they're taking responsibility for that hurt. Now we have to see if they can build something better." "Will you forgive them?" "I'm still deciding," I said honestly. "Forgiveness isn't instant. It's earned over time through consistent change. Ask me in a year." Another reporter, "What happens to Apex Vault now? Will family drama affect company operations?" I shifted back into CEO mode. Apex Vault Technologies operates independently of my personal life. We have a strong executive team, clear operational structures, and a culture of integrity. The company will continue its work regardless of my family situation. What about partnerships, specifically with Riverton Financial? Riverton Financial is undergoing an integrity review due to criminal activity by one of its executives, Derek Ashford, my former brother-in-law. Any potential partnership depends on the outcome of that review. Kate added, "I've already initiated Derek's termination and brought in independent auditors. Riverton will cooperate fully with any investigations." The questions continued for another 30 minutes, some hostile, some sympathetic, all hungry for details. When it finally ended, we walked off the podium together, a family that had broken open in public and was somehow still standing. In the elevator down, no one spoke. The silence was exhausted, not hostile. When we reached the parking garage, Patricia finally broke it. "I can't believe I just confessed to estate fraud on national television." "I can't believe I admitted to being a terrible sister to half of America," Kate added. Robert laughed, a strained, shocked sound. "We're either the most honest family in Boston or the most foolish." "Both," Eleanor said. "Definitely both." I looked at them, my complicated, flawed, painful, real family. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for standing up there. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, we did," Kate said. "We owed you that much. It's not enough, but it's a start." Outside, I could hear reporters shouting questions, camera shutters clicking. My private life was now public property. My carefully constructed anonymity was destroyed. But somehow, standing in that parking garage with my family's messy truth exposed, I felt lighter than I had in years. The invisible daughter had become undeniably visible, and the truth, however painful, was finally free. The days following the press conference felt like living in a kaleidoscope, everything familiar but constantly shifting, creating new patterns I didn't recognize. My phone never stopped. Interview requests from every major publication. Speaking invitations from tech conferences, business schools, women's leadership summits. 3 literary agents wanted me to write a memoir. Someone from Netflix inquired about a documentary. I declined almost everything. The point wasn't to become famous, it was to stop hiding. But I did agree to one thing: coffee with Kate. We met at a small cafe in Cambridge, far from our usual haunts. She arrived early, I noticed through the window, sitting in a back corner booth, her hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. When I slid into the seat across from her, she looked up with an expression I'd never seen before: uncertainty. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "You asked," I replied. "That's new." She winced but nodded. "I deserved that." "Kate." "No, let me say this." She set down her mug, her hands trembling slightly. "I've been in therapy since the press conference. Actually, since you revealed everything in that conference room." I blinked, surprised. "That was 5 days ago. I found someone who specializes in narcissistic family dynamics and sibling rivalry. Had an emergency session the next morning. She laughed, but it had no humor. Turns out, being the golden child is its own kind of prison. Tell me about it, I said, then caught myself. Sorry, this isn't a competition. See, that's the thing. Kate leaned forward, intense. Everything was a competition in my head. Every achievement you had, even ones I didn't know about, felt like a threat. Even now, knowing you built a billion-dollar company, part of me wants to diminish it somehow. Her honesty was startling. But I'm learning to recognize those thoughts, she continued, to catch them before they become actions. My therapist says it'll take time to rewire 3 decades of conditioning. How's the baby? I asked, shifting to safer ground. Kate's hand moved instinctively to her stomach, now showing a small bump. Healthy, strong heartbeat, due in July. And Derek? Her face hardened. Arrested 2 days ago. Federal charges for embezzlement, wire fraud, and witness intimidation. His lawyer called me, begging me to post bail. Did you? No. The word was firm. I'm done protecting him. Done pretending his choices aren't his responsibility. I sipped my coffee, processing. That must be hard. It is. It's also liberating. She met my eyes. Alex, I need you to know something. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't think I deserve it, not yet. Maybe not ever. Kate, but I am asking for a chance to be your sister, not your competitor, not your keeper. Just your sister. The words hung between us, fragile and honest. I'd like that, I said finally, but slowly, with boundaries. Whatever you need, Kate said quickly. I'll earn it, however long it takes. We sat in silence for a moment, sipping coffee, 2 sisters who'd spent decades as strangers finally beginning to meet. Can I ask you something? Kate said. When you were building Apex Vault, were you ever scared? Constantly, I admitted. Terrified I'd fail. Terrified I'd succeed and you'd all find out and take it from me. Terrified that I was exactly as small as you all thought I was. But you kept going. Because the fear of staying invisible was worse than the fear of being seen. Kate's eyes filled with tears. I made you feel invisible. Yes, I said simply. You did. I'm so sorry, Alex. I'm so fucking sorry. I know, I said. And we'll work through it. 1 coffee at a time. 3 days later, my mother requested a meeting at my real apartment, the one she'd never seen. I almost said no. The wounds she'd inflicted cut deeper than anyone else's. But Eleanor called and said, "Give her a chance to try, Alexandra. You don't have to accept it, but let her try." So I did. Patricia arrived precisely on time, carrying a leather document folder and looking more nervous than I'd ever seen her. She stood in my living room, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the minimalist furniture, the abstract art. "This is beautiful," she said quietly. "It suits you." "You sound surprised." "I am," she admitted. "I realized I have no idea what your taste is, what you like, who you are when you're not performing for us." She sat when I gestured to the sofa, placing the folder on the coffee table between us. "I've been meeting with Daniel Brooks," she said, "your family attorney, going through the estate documents, understanding what I did legally." I waited. "I committed fraud, Alex. Clear, documented fraud. Daniel says you'd have an airtight case if you wanted to pursue criminal charges." "I know," I said. She pulled papers from the folder with shaking hands. "This is a cashier's check for $800,000, the amount Kate received from selling your grandfather's property plus compound interest calculated at market rate." I stared at the check. "It's not enough," Patricia continued, her voice breaking. "It doesn't undo what I did, but it's the financial amends I can make. Mom, and this," she pulled out more papers, "is the deed to a property in Beacon Hill. It's been in your father's family for years. We were going to leave it to Kate. Instead, it's yours, free and clear. No strings." I looked at the documents, unable to process. "Why?" "Because I can't give you back your inheritance. But I can give you something equal, because you deserved to build your empire with family support, not despite family opposition." Her voice cracked completely. "Because I failed you in every way a mother can fail a child, and I need you to know I see that now." Tears streamed down her face, not delicate, performative tears, but ugly, body-shaking sobs. "I don't want your money," I said quietly. "It's not my money. It never was. It's what I owe you. What I want," I said, "is for you to tell me why. Really why. Why was it so easy to choose Kate over me?" Patricia wiped her eyes, forcing herself to meet my gaze. "Because Kate was easy to love. She was everything I understood: ambitious, social, conventional. You were harder to read, quieter, different. So you decided I was less? I decided you were safer to neglect." The admission seemed to cost her everything. Kate needed constant attention, constant praise, constant management. You seemed fine on your own, and I told myself that was enough. It wasn't. "I know." She reached for my hand, then stopped, uncertain if touch was welcome. "Alex, I can't undo 32 years of getting it wrong, but I can spend whatever time I have left getting it right." I looked at the check, the deed, the broken woman who'd given me life and then spent decades trying to reshape it. "I'm not cashing the check," I said finally, "but I'm keeping it, as a reminder that you acknowledged the debt. And the property? I'll take it, but not as payment, as a gift you should have given freely years ago." Patricia nodded, accepting the terms. "We're going to need family therapy," I said. "Professional help. This isn't something we can fix over coffee." "I've already found someone," she said quickly. "Dr. Sarah Winters. She specializes in family estrangement and reconciliation. I've had 2 sessions alone. She's willing to see us together when you're ready." The fact that she'd already started surprised me. "Okay," I said. "We can try." "Thank you," Patricia whispered. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "I haven't decided if I'm giving up or not," I said honestly. "But I'm willing to see if you can change." After she left, I sat alone with the check and the deed, tangible proof that some damage could be repaired, even if the scars remained. My father appeared at Morrigan's Books on a Tuesday afternoon when the store was quiet. He browsed the shelves like a customer for 20 minutes before approaching the counter where I was cataloging new inventory. "I didn't know you actually worked here," he said. "I thought it was just a cover." "I own it," I corrected. "But yes, I work here too. I like it." He nodded, pulling something from his jacket pocket, a worn notebook with a child's drawing on the cover. My breath caught. I recognized it. "You were 9, Robert said softly, opening the notebook to show pages of my childhood handwriting. "You drew plans for a company that would help computers share information better. You called it Data Bridge." I remembered. I'd filled that notebook with diagrams, revenue projections calculated with a child's optimism, organizational charts. "I told you it was adorable," Robert continued, his voice thick. "I patted your head and said maybe you'd be a teacher or a librarian someday. Something practical." I remember. I kept this notebook, put it in my desk drawer. Every few years I'd find it and smile at how cute it was. He looked at me with eyes full of regret. "I never once thought, this child is showing me who she's going to become." I took the notebook, flipping through pages I'd written 3 decades ago. The ideas were crude, but the foundation was there. The same principles I'd eventually used to build Apex Vault. "You had the blueprint the whole time," Robert said, "and I was too blind to see it." "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because I want you to know that part of me always knew you were special. I just lacked the courage to believe in what I couldn't understand." He paused. "I'm sorry, Alexandra, for not being the father who supported your dreams, for being the father who dismissed them." "What changed?" I asked. "Why do you see it now?" "Because you succeeded despite me, not because of me. And that shame, knowing my daughter built an empire while I told her to be realistic. It's unbearable." I closed the notebook carefully. "I'm angry with you, Dad. Really angry." I know. But I also know you loved me. You were just too scared of me being different to see what that difference meant. Can you forgive me? I'm working on it, I said honestly. Keep the therapy appointments Mom scheduled. Show up consistently. Prove this isn't just guilt talking. He nodded, accepting the terms. Will you come to Sunday dinner this week? Your mother is cooking. Kate will be there. We want to start new traditions, ones that include you as you actually are. I hesitated, then, okay, but if anyone tries to tell me how to live my life, I'm leaving. Deal, Robert said and smiled, a real smile, sad but genuine. Eleanor invited me to tea at her apartment on Thursday evening. Unlike my parents' grand house, Eleanor's space was modest, a one-bedroom in a building she'd lived in for 40 years, filled with books and memories and quiet dignity. I always knew you'd be extraordinary, she said, pouring Earl Grey into delicate china cups. I just didn't know how much. You were the only one who never seemed surprised, I observed, because I saw your grandfather in you, the same careful observation, the same quiet calculation, the same refusal to waste energy on convincing people who wouldn't listen. She handed me a cup and settled into her armchair. Thomas would be proud, Eleanor continued, not just of your success, but of your integrity. You could have destroyed this family with the truth. You chose accountability instead. I'm still angry at them. Good. Anger means you haven't given up. It's apathy that kills relationships. I sipped the tea, letting the warmth settle in my chest. Grandma, why didn't you tell me about the inheritance? About what Mom did? Eleanor's face clouded. By the time I discovered the fraud, you were already 23. Already building Apex Vault in secret. I debated telling you, but... She paused. I was afraid of what it would do to the family. So you chose them over me, too? Yes, she admitted, and I was wrong. I prioritized family unity over family honesty. I'm sorry for that, child. The apology, coming from Eleanor, meant something. She'd been my ally, but an imperfect one. I do have something for you, though, Eleanor said, rising slowly. She retrieved a wooden box from her bookshelf and placed it in my hands. Inside, stock certificates, legal documents, incorporation papers. What is this? When you filed your first LLC for Apex Vault, you listed an angel investor, anonymous, $100,000 in seed funding. I stared at her. That was you? I couldn't tell you then. It would have exposed your secret. But yes, child, I believed in you when no one else did. I invested in your dream. The certificates were dated 8 years ago. Eleanor had been there from the beginning. The investment is now worth approximately $48 million, she said calmly. I'm signing it all back to you. Consider it compound interest on the faith I should have shown more openly. Grandma, I can't. You can and you will. I'm 83 years old, Alexandra. I don't need money. I need to know that I supported you in at least one meaningful way. I looked at this woman, the only one who'd put her money where her belief was, even if she'd kept it secret. Thank you, I whispered, for seeing me when no one else did. Thank you, she replied, for reminding this family what real strength looks like. 2 weeks after the press conference, Kate called me at 6 a.m. They're trying to fire me, she said without preamble. Emergency board meeting. They want me gone. I was already awake, running on my treadmill overlooking the Boston skyline. On what grounds? Association with Derek. Failure of oversight. Reputational damage to the firm. Her voice shook. Alex, they're blaming me for his crimes. I stopped running. That's not legal. You're a victim of his fraud, not a co-conspirator. Try telling them that. The board wants a clean break, someone to blame. I'm convenient. I grabbed my phone, pulling up secure files. Did Derek have any direct authority over your divisions? No, different reporting structures entirely. And the auditor's preliminary findings? My divisions are clean, profitable, well-managed. But that doesn't matter to them. They care about optics. I thought quickly. Don't resign. Don't give them anything in writing. I'm making a call. Alex, you don't have to. Yes, I do, because they're using my investigation to punish you for someone else's crimes. That's not justice. I hung up and immediately called Jessica. We need to release a statement, I said. Riverton Financial's board is scapegoating Kate Morrison for Derek Ashford's crimes. Apex Vault's investigation found her divisions clean. If they fire her, they're punishing competence to cover their own oversight failures. Alex, getting involved in their internal politics, they're using our audit to justify it. That makes it our business. Jessica was quiet for a moment. Okay, I'll draft something, but this could complicate future partnerships. I don't care. This is about what's right. 2 hours later, Apex Vault released a statement. Recent media coverage has suggested Catherine Morrison's involvement in financial improprieties at Riverton Financial. Our comprehensive audit found no evidence of wrongdoing in Ms. Morrison's divisions, which demonstrated exemplary financial management and ethical operations. Any suggestion that Ms. Morrison bears responsibility for her former spouse's criminal activities is unsupported by evidence and contrary to our findings. The statement was picked up immediately. Business outlets ran with Apex Vault Defends Sister. Legal analysts discussed employer liability. By afternoon, Riverton's board had postponed their vote. Kate called me crying. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. You earned your position fairly. I won't let them take it because it's politically convenient. Thank you, she whispered. I don't deserve your help, but thank you. You deserve fair evaluation, I corrected. That's all I'm ensuring. 3 days later, Riverton's board voted to keep Kate as CFO, contingent on completing the integrity audit. The chairman released a statement praising her unwavering commitment to ethical operations. Kate sent me a text. I'm keeping my job because my sister believed in me. I won't forget that, I replied. Keep doing good work. That's the best thank you. Derek's arrest made national news. Federal prosecutors charged him with 15 counts of wire fraud, embezzlement, and witness intimidation. His bail was set at $2 million. No one in the Morrison family posted it. Kate filed for divorce immediately. Her lawyer was ruthless. Criminal activity voided their prenuptial agreement, and Kate was entitled to everything they'd acquired during the marriage, including Derek's stake in several properties. Derek tried to fight it, claiming Kate had known about his activities. His lawyer produced no evidence because none existed. The trial was scheduled for 6 months out, but Derek's lawyer called Kate 3 weeks after his arrest. He wants to make a deal, Kate told me over lunch. Plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for testimony against his loan sharks. What does he want from you? A letter to the judge, character reference, asking for leniency. I watched her face carefully. What are you going to do? Kate was quiet for a long moment. A month ago, I would have done it. Would have convinced myself he deserves compassion, that I should stand by him. And now? Now I'm writing a letter, but not the one he wants. I'm telling the judge the truth, that Derek manipulated me, used my career as cover, and showed no remorse until he faced consequences. She met my eyes. My therapist says I spent so long being perfect that I forgot I'm allowed to be angry. You're allowed, I confirmed. Then I'm angry, I'm furious, and I'm not protecting him anymore. Derek ultimately pled guilty to 7 counts of fraud. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and ordered to repay $3.2 million in restitution. Kate attended the sentencing but sat in the back. She didn't speak to him, didn't try to say goodbye. Afterward, she called me. It's over. How do you feel? Free, she said. Terrified and grieving and free. That sounds about right. Despite, or perhaps because of, the publicity, Apex Vault thrived. Investors appreciated the transparency. New partnerships formed with companies that valued integrity over secrecy. 3 competitors tried to poach our key employees and failed. Loyalty, it turned out, ran deeper than I'd known. The board called a special meeting to discuss succession planning. Alexandra, our chairman said, you've operated successfully in stealth mode for 8 years. Now that you're public-facing, we need to formalize leadership structure. I'd been expecting this. What are you proposing? KEO-CEO structure. You and Jessica officially sharing the role you've been performing in practice. I looked at Jessica, who sat beside me. What do you think? I think it's long overdue, she said. I've been the face while you were the brain. Time to acknowledge we're both essential. The board voted unanimously. Press releases went out that afternoon. Apex Vault Technologies announces leadership restructure. Founder Alexandra Morrison and Jessica Walsh named co-CEOs in recognition of their collaborative approach to company growth. The tech industry loved it. Women leading together rather than competing became a trending topic. Harvard Business Review requested an interview. But the best part was telling my family over Sunday dinner. Co-CEO, Robert said, proud and confused. I don't think I've heard of that structure before. It's becoming more common, I explained, particularly in companies that value collaboration over hierarchy. So you're sharing power? Patricia asked, trying to understand. We're recognizing that power shared is power multiplied, Jessica said. She'd started joining Sunday dinners, enjoying the Morrison family chaos. Kate raised her glass. To women who build empires together instead of tearing each other down. We all drank to that. One morning, I sat in Morrigan's books before opening, drinking coffee and reading. A customer knocked on the glass door, pointing at the closed sign with confusion. I considered pretending I wasn't there, then thought, why am I hiding? I unlocked the door. We don't open for another hour, but you can browse if you'd like. You're her, the woman said. Alexandra Morrison, the billionaire bookstore owner. I'm also just a bookstore owner, I said. Would you like a recommendation? She blinked, surprised. Yes, actually. Something about reinvention? I walked her to the fiction section. Have you read The House on Mango Street? It's about a girl discovering her identity beyond others' expectations. Perfect. She bought the book and 3 others I recommended. As she left, she said, "Thank you for keeping this place open. The city needs bookstores more than it needs another luxury condo." After she left, I sat behind the counter and thought about what this place meant. I could sell it. It had served its purpose as a disguise. The hidden office behind the shelf could be dismantled, but I didn't want to. I called Jessica. I'm hiring a full-time manager for Morrigan's books, expanding the space, adding a community center component. Why? Because both parts of me are real, the CEO and the bookseller. I don't have to choose. Alex, you're already working 60-hour weeks. Then I'll work 50 and spend 10 here. This place reminds me why I built Apex Vault in the first place, to serve communities, not just shareholders. Jessica was quiet. Then, okay, but I get to approve the manager, and you're not working register during Christmas rush. Deal. I hung up and looked around the bookstore. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes and old pages and possibility. Both worlds could coexist, the empire and the refuge, the power and the peace. I didn't have to be only one thing anymore. 6 months after the press conference, Sunday dinners at the Morrison house had become something I almost looked forward to. Not perfect, not healed, but honest. Patricia cooked without fussing over presentation. Robert asked about my week and actually listened to the answers. Eleanor presided from her usual chair, offering wisdom when needed and silence when it wasn't. Kate arrived carrying her 5-month-old daughter, Emma. Sorry I'm late, she said, looking exhausted but genuinely happy. Someone decided nap time was optional today. I reached for Emma, who'd started recognizing me. May I? Kate handed her over without hesitation, something that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. Trust, slowly rebuilding. Emma grabbed my hair with surprising strength, making Kate laugh. She does that to everyone. I think it's her way of saying hello. We settled around the table. 5 adults, 1 baby, and decades of dysfunction we were slowly, imperfectly learning to unmake. How's work? Robert asked Kate. Actually good. Riverton completed the integrity audit last week. Clean results. The board is discussing expansion. And therapy? Patricia asked. Kate didn't bristle at the question anymore. Helpful. Hard, but helpful. We're working on my perfectionism and how it affects my parenting. She looked at me. I don't want Emma growing up in a house where love is conditional on achievement. That's wise, I said. Patricia flinched, the reminder of her failures still fresh, but nodded. I'm learning the same thing. Better late than never. Eleanor tapped her cane. Speaking of learning, Robert, have you enrolled in that listening workshop I recommended? Starting next week, he confirmed, slightly embarrassed. Apparently, I have what the counselor calls dismissive communication patterns. Apparently, Patricia said dryly, and we all laughed. It felt strange, laughing together. But good strange. New normal strange. After dinner, Kate and I took Emma for a walk through the neighborhood. Spring had arrived in Boston, bringing green leaves and the smell of rain. Can I ask you something? Kate said as Emma dozed in her stroller. Always. Do you ever regret revealing everything? Would you go back to being anonymous if you could? I thought about it. Some days, yes. I miss the privacy, the ability to move through the world without recognition. But mostly, no. Why not? Because hiding was exhausting. Remembering which version of myself to present, monitoring every word, living in fear of discovery. That was its own prison. Kate nodded slowly. I'm starting to understand that. I built my whole identity on being perfect, and it was exhausting too. Just a different kind of hiding. We walked in comfortable silence for a moment. Alex, I need to tell you something, Kate said. I've been offered a position, Chief Operating Officer at a mid-size firm. Better work-life balance, equity stake, full autonomy. That's wonderful. Are you taking it? I think so. But I wanted to tell you first because… She paused. Because it means withdrawing Riverton's partnership proposal with Apex Vault. I won't be there to rebuild that relationship. I stopped walking. Kate, you don't need my permission to make career decisions. I know, but after everything, I want to be transparent. Make sure you know my choices aren't about avoiding you. I appreciate that, I said. And for the record, I think you should take it. Build something on your own terms, not weighted down by Derek's legacy. She smiled, relieved. Thank you. I'm terrified, but excited. That's usually a good sign. Emma woke up, making small sounds. Kate lifted her from the stroller, and I watched my sister, exhausted, uncertain but genuinely trying to be better, comfort her daughter with practiced ease. You're a good mom, I said. Kate's eyes filled with tears. That means a lot, coming from you. I mean it. You're breaking cycles. That takes courage. We walked back to the house, and for the first time in our lives, we felt like actual sisters. 2 weeks later, Kate requested a formal meeting at Apex Vault. She arrived in professional attire, carrying a presentation binder. Jessica and I met her in Conference Room B, neutral territory. Thank you for seeing me, Kate began formally. This is a business proposal, separate from family dynamics. We're listening, I said. Kate pulled out documents. I'm joining Cascade Operations as COO. Mid-size firm, strong ethics, growth potential. They're seeking a technology partner for infrastructure modernization. She laid out financial projections, implementation timelines, integration strategies. The work was solid, really solid. Why bring this to us? Jessica asked. Because Apex Vault is the best fit technically, but more than that, I want to prove I can earn a partnership based solely on merit, no family connections, just good business. I reviewed the proposal carefully. The numbers were conservative but sound. The integration plan was thorough. The firm had clean financials and strong leadership. This is good work, Kate, I said honestly. Is it good enough? I looked at Jessica, who'd been reviewing her own copies. She nodded slightly. We'll present it to the board, I said, with our recommendation for approval. Kate's breath caught. Really? Really. But Kate, this partnership moves forward only if it makes business sense. If the board approves, it's because the proposal is strong, not because you're my sister. I understand. That's what I want. A fair evaluation, nothing more. The board meeting was the following week. Jessica and I presented Cascade Operations' proposal without mentioning the family connection until the Q&A. One disclosure, I said. Cascade's incoming COO is my sister, Catherine Morrison. The room went silent. We've reviewed this proposal blindly, Jessica added. On its merits alone. The numbers are sound. The fit is good. We recommend approval. After deliberation, the board voted yes, 12-2. I called Kate that evening. Congratulations, partnership approved. She was crying. Thank you for giving me a fair shot. Thank you for doing work worth approving. On a rainy Saturday morning, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting. I made coffee and sat by my window to read it. Dear Alexandra, I'm writing this because Dr. Winters suggested I articulate things I've never said aloud, things I need you to hear, even if you're not ready to forgive. I was raised by a woman who believed success was finite, that there wasn't enough achievement, love, or recognition to go around. My mother pitted me against my sister constantly, and I hated it. I swore I'd never do that to my daughters, and then I did exactly that. I saw you and Kate and couldn't imagine a world where you both succeeded equally. So I chose. I decided Kate's path was clearer, more conventional, easier to support, and I told myself I was being practical. What I was really being was afraid. Afraid that if you succeeded in ways I didn't understand, it would highlight my limitations. Afraid that your quiet brilliance would make my need for external validation look hollow. Afraid that you didn't need me the way Kate did, so maybe you didn't need me at all. I was wrong. So catastrophically wrong. You needed me to see you, to believe in you, to invest in your dreams the way I invested in Kate's. And I failed you because I was too small, too scared, too trapped in my own mother's legacy. I can't undo 32 years of choosing wrong. I can't give you back the inheritance I stole or the support I withheld. I can't restore the confidence I undermined or erase the pain I caused. But I can tell you this. I see you now. I see your brilliance, your integrity, your extraordinary capacity to build something meaningful while staying true to yourself. I see the woman you became despite me, not because of me. And I'm so proud of you, Alexandra. So deeply, regretfully, belatedly proud. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm learning that healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about building something honest in the present. If you're willing to keep building with me, I'll keep showing up. Imperfectly, but honestly. With love, I should have shown better. Mom? I sat with the letter for a long time, tears streaming down my face. It didn't erase the pain, didn't undo the years of feeling invisible, didn't restore what was lost, but it was the first time my mother had taken full responsibility without asking for absolution. It was a beginning. I picked up my phone and called her. I got your letter, I said when she answered. And? Her voice was small, scared. And it helped. Thank you for writing it. She exhaled shakily. Does this mean you forgive me? No, I said honestly. Not yet. But it means I believe you're trying, and that's enough for now. Okay, she whispered. I'll take it. After we hung up, I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. Someday, I might forgive her completely. Or I might not. But today, I could acknowledge her effort. And that was progress. 1 year after the revelation, Apex Vault hosted an event I'd been planning for months. The Apex Vault Community Foundation official launch. We'd rented a beautiful venue in the Arts District, the same neighborhood I'd helped revitalize where my bookstore still operated, where my grandfather's property had once stood. The foundation's mission, supporting small businesses, literacy programs, and entrepreneurship education for underserved communities. 300 people attended. Business leaders, community organizers, educators, journalists, and my family sitting in the audience rather than on the stage. I stood at the podium looking out at the crowd. 1 year ago, I began, my life changed irrevocably. I'd spent 8 years building a company in secret, hiding my success from the people who knew me best. When the truth came out, it was messy, painful, and very public. Cameras flashed, reporters took notes. But that pain taught me something crucial. You can't build sustainable success on a foundation of hiding. True power comes from being fully yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. I gestured to the displays around the room showing the foundation's programs. This foundation exists because I was once invisible, because I understand what it means to be dismissed, underestimated, and told you're not enough. Every entrepreneur we support, every student we mentor, every business we fund, they're me, at 24, believing I could build something meaningful if someone just believed back. Applause rippled through the audience. I'm dedicating this foundation to everyone who's ever felt invisible, to everyone told to be realistic, to shrink their dreams, to accept limitation. You're not invisible. You're just waiting for your moment to be undeniable. The applause grew louder. After the speech, I mingled with guests. Community leaders thanked me. Entrepreneurs pitched ideas. Students asked for advice. And in the back of the room, I saw my family watching. Not with pride in my achievements, with something simpler and more valuable, acceptance of who I actually was. After the event, Daniel Brooks approached me with a weathered envelope. "Your grandmother asked me to give you this," he said. "It's been in my safe for 12 years, with instructions to deliver it when you achieved something remarkable or needed to remember you could." The envelope was sealed with wax, marked with my grandfather's handwriting. "For Alexandra, when she's ready." I opened it carefully. My dear Alexandra, if you're reading this, one of two things has happened. Either you've built something extraordinary, or you've forgotten that you can. I'm betting on the former. I've watched you since you were small, and I see in you what others miss, a quiet fire. The kind that burns steady rather than bright. The kind that transforms everything it touches without announcing itself. Your family will not understand you easily. They're good people, but they mistake loudness for confidence and convention for success. They'll try to shape you into something familiar, something they can comprehend. Don't let them. Build something worthy of that fire inside you. Build it quietly if you must. Build it alone if necessary. But build it true to who you are, not who they expect you to be. And when they finally see you, really see you, be gracious. They're only human. They'll have missed you because they were looking in the wrong direction, not because they didn't love you. Forgive them if you can, but more importantly, never need their permission to be extraordinary. I've left you property not because I think you need money, but because I believe you'll build something meaningful on it, something that serves people, not just profits. Prove me right. With all my love and absolute confidence, your grandfather, Thomas. I read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words. He'd known. Somehow, he'd known exactly who I'd become. Eleanor appeared beside me, reading over my shoulder. "He wrote that 2 weeks before he died," she said softly. "He knew Patricia would try to redirect the inheritance. He hoped the letter would reach you anyway." "You knew about this?" "I gave it to Daniel with instructions. Thomas wanted you to have it when you needed it most, either as validation or encouragement." I folded the letter carefully. "Thank you, Grandma, for keeping his faith alive." "He was right about you," Eleanor said. "Gracious even when you had every right to burn it all down." "I thought about it," I admitted. "I know. The fact that you didn't, that's the real measure of your character." Christmas Eve arrived again, exactly 1 year after the intervention that had started everything. This time, when I pulled up to my parents' house, I drove my actual car, a understated but nice Tesla. I wore clothes I genuinely liked, not a costume of poverty. When I walked through the door, Patricia greeted me with a hug. "Alexandra, welcome home." Not Lexi. Alexandra. My full name, spoken with respect. The living room looked different. No banner celebrating one child over another. No strategic seating arrangements. Just a family gathering that acknowledged everyone equally. Kate was already there with Emma, who'd started walking and immediately toddled toward me with arms outstretched. "Auntie," she declared, her new favorite word. I scooped her up and she grabbed my hair, her signature greeting. "She's been asking about you all day," Kate said, smiling. Robert came over and hugged me, something he'd started doing recently, awkward but genuine. How was the foundation launch? Overwhelming in the best way. We've already received 50 applications for grants. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Eleanor settled into her chair, watching the family dynamics with satisfaction. The matriarch observing change she'd helped facilitate. Dinner was different too. Conversations flowed naturally. No performances, no comparisons, no unspoken hierarchies. Kate talked about her new role at Cascade Operations. Patricia shared stories from her volunteer work at a literacy center, a development that had surprised everyone. Robert discussed the listening workshop's lessons, only slightly defensive, and when they asked about Apex Vault, they asked with genuine curiosity, not jealousy or confusion. We're expanding into 3 new markets, I said. Jessica and I are splitting responsibilities. She's focusing on operations while I handle strategic partnerships. That's incredible, Kate said, and meant it. No one tried to diminish it. No one changed the subject. No one offered unsolicited advice. They just listened. After dinner, Robert stood and raised his glass. A year ago, he began, his voice carrying across the room, we gathered here believing we were helping someone who needed fixing. We were convinced we understood what success looked like, what Alexandra needed to do to achieve it. He looked at me directly. We were catastrophically wrong. Patricia stood beside him. We were blind to our own daughter, dismissive of her dreams, convinced that our way was the only way. Kate stood next. I spent 32 years treating my sister like a competitor instead of recognizing her brilliance. Eleanor remained seated but raised her glass. And I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. They all looked at me, and the sincerity in their faces was undeniable. This year has been painful, Robert continued. Confronting our failures, acknowledging damage we caused, learning to see what was always there, but it's also been transformative. So tonight, Patricia said, her voice thick with emotion, we're not celebrating success or achievement. We're celebrating something more important, truth. Robert raised his glass higher. To Alexandra, who had the courage to show us who she really is, and the grace to let us try to be better. To family, Kate added, not the one we performed, but the one we're building. To second chances, Patricia whispered. To the quiet fires that change the world, Eleanor finished, quoting my grandfather's letter. I stood, raising my own glass. And to being seen, really seen, for who we actually are. We drank together, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly present in this family. Not as the disappointing daughter, not as the secret billionaire, just as Alexandra Morrison in all my complicated, multifaceted, integrated wholeness. Later, Eleanor and I stood on the porch watching snow fall in gentle spirals. Are you happy, child? She asked. I considered the question. I'm at peace. That's better than happy. Why better? Because happy is a moment. Peace is a state of being. I don't have to hide anymore. I don't have to perform. I can just be. And your family? They're trying, really trying. That's all I can ask. Eleanor nodded, her breath fogging in the cold air. Your grandfather would be proud, not just of what you built, but of how you've handled its revelation. I wish he could see it. He does, dear, in his own way. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights blur through the snow. What's next for you? Eleanor asked. More of everything. Building Apex Vault, running the foundation, working at the bookstore. Dating, maybe. I've been so focused on work that I forgot to build a personal life. And your family? Continued therapy? Continued Sunday dinners? Continued slow, imperfect rebuilding. That's all any of us can do, Eleanor said. Show up. Try. Forgive when we can. Set boundaries when we can't. I hugged her gently. Thank you, Grandma, for believing in me. Thank you for being worth believing in. I drove home from my parents' house as snow blanketed the city in white silence. My phone showed messages from Jessica, from Kate, from various family members. All different. All real. I passed Morrigan's books, lights glowing warmly in the window. The hidden door behind the classical literature section, No longer a secret, but still a threshold between my two worlds. I passed Apex Vault's headquarters downtown, my name visible on the building now. No more anonymity, but also no more hiding. When I reached my apartment, I stood at my window with tea, looking out at Boston's skyline. 1 year ago, I'd stood outside my childhood home, invisible and powerful, watching my family celebrate my sister while planning my revelation. Tonight, I stood in my own space, fully visible and still powerful, but different. Integration instead of division. Wholeness instead of fragments. Truth instead of performance. My phone buzzed. Kate, thank you for giving us another chance. I know we don't deserve it, but I'm grateful every day. I typed back. We're all learning. That's what matters. Another message, this time from Patricia. Your grandfather's letter. He saw you so clearly. I'm sorry it took me so long to see what he knew all along. And Robert. Proud of you doesn't even begin to cover it, but I'll keep saying it until you believe I mean it. I set down the phone and looked at my reflection in the dark window. The woman looking back wasn't the invisible daughter or the secret billionaire or the revenge fantasy come to life. She was just Alexandra Morrison, CEO, sister, daughter, granddaughter, bookseller, founder, friend, all of it, simultaneously, without apology. I'd spent years invisible, waiting to be seen. Turns out, I wasn't waiting. I was building a life so undeniable they'd have no choice but to look. The invisible billionaire had become visible, but more importantly, the invisible daughter had become whole. Not because they finally saw me, but because I finally saw myself. And that was everything.